Thank you. The meeting will come to order. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the May 14th, 2013 Board of Selectmen of Raymond meeting. First thing is the minutes of the previous meeting, which you'll see on your agenda was dated April 2nd, but that was the original meeting, and then we put it off until April 16th. So the minutes are actually from April 16th. Do I hear
Make a motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Comment?
Wasn't the meeting was held on the 16th? We had scheduled a meeting for the 13th, I believe.
Was it the 13th?
April 13th,
Yeah,
so actually
okay.
April 2nd, we held a meeting.
We did hold a meeting on
Yes.
the
Was it
2nd.
April 2nd? Okay.
But then we had a follow.
Then we had a follow.
The following meeting was on the
My
16th.
mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, any further comment?
So
Yes.
I guess at the, I wasn't here for the April 16th meeting. Did you approve the minutes of the April 2nd meeting?
Yeah, we
On
did.
the 16th? Okay.
Yeah.
That's very good, thank you. That's all.
All in favor? Opposed?
One
Pass.
abstention.
One abstention, yes, because he wasn't here. Next is a public hearing. First on the public hearing agenda is the consent agreement between the town and Vicky and Donald Matthews and Marston Tree Service, Inc. for shoreland zoning violations at 11 Bridges Lane, map 069, lot 001. And I'd like to ask Chris Hansen to step up on that one.
Good evening, I'm Chris, Code Officer, Town Raymond. Sam, would you like to give me a brief summary of the agreement?
I don't have the agreement before me here.
Just asking if you want him to give you one. Yes.
Yes.
Basically, we agreed in a mediation that for the violations at Bridges Lane, Donald and Vicky Matthews would pay a Okay, I'll start over. For the violations at 11 Bridges Lane, we arrived at a consent agreement in a mediation where the town of Raymond versus Marston Tree Service and Donald and Vicky Matthews. The result of that mediation was that Marston Tree Service Company would pay a monetary penalty to the town of Raymond for trimming trees in excess of the 1/3 of their height. The penalty amount would be $15,000 payable to the town on June 1st of this year. The Matthews would pay a $10,000 fine, and they have attached as an exhibit to the agreement a restoration plan for plantings at the property, and the value of that mitigation plan was in the ballpark of $18,000.
And this is agreeable with you?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to talk about the
Public comment.
public comment, please? Any public comment on that issue? Yes, ma'am.
Should I go to the
Yes,
podium?
please.
All right. My name is Barbara Lovell. I live at 77 Wild Acres Road. My property is immediately adjacent, with the exception of a right-of-way owned by Thomas Hall. And at the time of and during the construction, I noted many trucks of timber being carried off, and I wrote a letter, an email to the town stating I hoped that there was some follow-up and observance of cutting And I was told in response that it had only to do with the footprint. My mind's eye and the amount of timber I saw on trucks contradicted this. And I'm not alone in that thinking. And my feeling, I then followed it up some months later, perhaps. Happened to be in town hall on another errand, and I asked Mr. Hanson how things were going, because I had heard it was in, there had been a fine established and addressed toward this situation of overcutting. And I was told it was in litigation and that things could not be discussed. I understood that. My feeling is that perhaps I'm erroneous in my thinking of what the initial fine was levied. I would stand corrected with that. But rules is rules, and ignorance is not part of adhering to the rules. So I stand by what I think and say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just someone else, yes.
Yeah, my name is John Marston. I own Marston Tree Service. Just want to make it clear what this lady's talking about. This part that she's talking about had nothing to do with this whole situation. The only thing that my company did was overprune. And when we did that, I immediately took responsibility. I was not there at the time. My company did it, and I took full responsibility for it. I just wanted to make it understood that what she's talking about lumber being hauled out had nothing to do with my company. It was another tree company that cut that lot, not mine. And I just wanted to make that understood.
Okay, I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Yes, ma'am.
It's not, in a sense, it is readdressing, and it is hearsay, but a neighbor and a friend of mine did go over to property at the time that Marston, and this has nothing to do with timber cutting and pulling up of stumps and hauling. This has to do with the pruning and elevation of same. This individual, again, hearsay, did go and talk to the technician that was in the cherry picker and said something to the effect, again, secondhand, that a little bit too high, and he assured this individual that he was, and he used the word arborist. He was very young, and my friend thought, everybody's young compared to us, but he thought that, all right, this guy knows what he's doing, and he knows what he is doing. And it was a very high cut, but this arborist employed by Marston on the cherry picker assured that everything was okay.
Thank you again. Chris?
Just final remarks. I know there was a proposal made to the town to do cutting for the town in lieu of the fine. We had a staff meeting about that this morning, had a quick conversation with the town attorney, and town staff recommends that the board vote to have Don Willard execute the consent agreement that has been signed by both Matthews and the Marstons immediately.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further comments, yes.
Hi, Jessica Fay, 141 Spiller Hill Road. We actually also own some property in the area of Bridges Lane, and I just wanted to comment that I feel like a fine and a penalty should, how do I put this, be sufficient to preclude anyone else from doing the type of thing that was done at this property. There are those of us who have had property in the area in our families for 50 years, and we've been good stewards, followed all the rules, had our views blocked by the trees, and we've left the trees in place because those are the rules. And I just want to make sure that there's enough incentive by these fines to make sure that nobody does this again. I know there have been issues in other towns where people have bought waterfront property, cleared the lots. It's made the lots more valuable, and the fine hasn't been enough to stop them from doing it, because the property still becomes more valuable with that clearing and the views and all that. So I just wanted to make sure that that had been considered, and would like to urge the town to levy the fines, because I think it'll be good for everybody.
Yes, thank you. And we can rely on Chris Hansen to police this issue, and he does a very good job of that.
In response to her comments, we did take that into consideration. When you add up the fines that are in this agreement, the restoration plan, attorney's fees, we were seeking more. This is an out-of-court settlement, and there are no guarantees in court. So this was the best mediation that we could possibly get, and the highest in fines that we felt we could achieve with the town attorney, town manager, and myself, and Chairman Gifford was also present. So if you go to court, we might have gotten more, we might have got less.
Thank you. If there's no any further comment? No further comment, do we have we'll close the public hearing and ask for
I will
A
make a
motion.
motion to accept the mediation, $15,000 fine to Marston Tree Service, $10,000 to the Matthews, with an $18,000 restoration plan.
Second. Authorize me to sign it.
moved and seconded.
And we'll, to amend that motion, will allow the town manager to sign off on the contract, on the,
Right, yes.
To execute.
when they execute the mediation.
Second amendment.
Any comment? Charlie?
Could I ask a question of
Sure.
Chris? Chris, could you just answer Ms. Lovell's first part of her comments was that she had sent an email to the town, and could you just clarify that in terms of, from what I understood, you sent an email, and you had seen, you were actually at the property or living at your next door, so you saw some activity and you emailed the town. So could you just clarify that
There was
for me?
activity prior to these violations. There were tree removal permits issued for 2 dead trees. Then there was tree removal in the area where the house was built. That was the area beyond the 100-foot buffer, so there was no violation at that point.
And that was done by a different company?
Yes.
Does that satisfy you, Ms. Lovell, as in terms of?
No, it doesn't, frankly, but I think it's a done deed, don't you?
Okay, I just needed that clarification. Thank you.
Further comment? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Next on our agenda, new business. Consideration of proclaiming June as Raymond Garden Month. Person named Alyssa Gifford is going to speak. Should I leave the room?
Good evening. I'm Elisa Gifford, 546 Webbs Mills Road. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about a happy subject in Raymond. Hopefully, everyone has noticed that the gardens along 302 have been cleaned, mulched, and have gone through their initial burst of bloom with the early tulips. Of course, that will continue with seasonal plantings, as has been done in the past. I want to draw to your attention, if you are unaware of it, the Raymond Community Garden, which is located next to the Raymond Village Library. It is unique among community gardens in that it abuts a MOFGA-certified organic garden. So what does that mean exactly? A MOFGA-certified garden has to go through rigorous standards in order to be actually certified. It sometimes can take years to become a certified organic garden. That means that the garden which is next to it, which is our community garden, must also follow rigorous organic standards, although it may not be certified as organic. Therefore, the gardeners have to be very much aware of insects, diseases. It's a very scientific approach to gardening, which one would not expect. Therefore, it's kind of a blend of both the art and the science of gardening. So in the celebration of the gardening season, which is obviously visibly begun, don't you think the trees sort of did their thing overnight? They sort of leafed out. They were there. There are several events leading up to the big event, which is, of course, the garden tour at the end of June, that are taking place at the Village Library that we would invite all of you to participate in. The first one begins next week on Thursday, which is going to be a talk given by Tom Atwell, who is a garden columnist for the Portland Press Herald. He's going to speak at 6 o'clock at the library next Thursday. It's free, open to all. If you're interested in coming, please call the library or stop by and drop your name off, because we do expect quite a few people. 655-4283, that's the Village Library. On June 5th, the author of the Maine Garden Journal, Lisa Colburn, will also speak at the Raymond Village Library at 6 o'clock. We expect a big crowd for that one too, so if you're interested, please, once again, sign up. Then on June 8th, just 3 days later, the much anticipated is the Raymond Village Library annual plant sale. It runs from 7 to 11 in the morning. It is a much anticipated event because it's really not your mother's garden plant sale. We often get some very unusual plants, and they are all grown here in Raymond by Raymond gardeners, so you know you're getting healthy, well-grown plants. On June 23rd, the kickoff for the summer reading program at Raymond Village Library. This year it's very interesting because it centers around gardening and the outdoors with the theme Dig Into Reading. There are programs on terrariums, on entomology, and bees and beehives, and it's for ages children through teens. Then, of course, the big event on June 29th is the garden tour. And I want you to see, I've got it here, the beautiful artwork that was donated by Donna Cantor, who works at Good Life Market, donated a painting of hollyhocks, which we are also raffling at the library. Her painting is in the library right now with the raffle tickets. And as you can see, we've taken advantage of her artwork with putting it on the cover of the brochure. We have bookmarks with this on it. The design work has been done by the head of our beautification committee, who's done a wonderful job pulling together descriptions of the gardens and photographs of the gardens. Tickets are now on sale at the library. You can also buy them online, RaymondVillageLibrary.org, which, thanks to a good team of technicians, figured out how to put a button on the website, so you can just go and click on that and buy your tickets. It's $15 in advance, $20 at the door. Children 13 and under are free. The garden tour features 10 to 12 private gardens in the Raymond area that can be visited at any time between 9 and 3 on the 29th, and it's self-guided, so you can do it in any order. Visit the gardens in any order. We also are running another raffle at the library, which is for a 5-day stay at Point Sebago, worth $645. Raffle tickets are on sale at the library. The drawing for this will be the end of May. The stay is specific. It is in June, 16th to the 21st of June. So we figure if we win it, we'll probably give it to a family member. So what is the purpose of the garden tour? Obviously, it's mainly to raise funds for the Raymond Village Library and to involve our community and surrounding communities in an event featuring Raymond's creativity and ingenuity, and to introduce to tour visitors businesses that might not be known to those outside Raymond, and to strengthen the role of the Raymond Village Library as a community center for all ages. The Hawthorne Community Association is also partnering with us that day by scheduling their Strawberry Festival to immediately follow the tour. It will be at 3:30 at the Hawthorne House, and will feature another garden speaker, Judy Paolini, who's also a Maine author and has written this book called The Inspired Garden. It's a wonderful book. As usual, the donation for the Strawberry Festival is $10. There is now an aggressive advertising campaign underway. We expect up to 400 visitors from Raymond and surrounding communities because advertising has gone to all the libraries in the area, all the garden clubs in the area. There are businesses in Portland who have our poster. The Portland Press Herald will be running an ad, as well as all the free listings that we can take advantage of. We invite everyone, any and all, to come, enjoy the day and the upcoming events leading up to it, and we hope you will help us continue to spread the word about what Raymond has to offer. Thank you very much.
What is, there's something about a proclamation here?
Is there a proclamation?
Well, on the consideration of proclaiming June as Raymond Garden Month, is that part of your presentation, Mrs. Gifford?
Is it?
It is now.
I was under the impression it was an official proclamation.
Well,
But yes, we would certainly.
Well, we will consider it. Thank you for presenting it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Please
Thank
come.
you.
Please
Thank you
come
very
to the
much.
tour.
It was very,
I'll make a motion to proclaim the month of June as Raymond Garden Month.
Second.
comment?
I think it's really very generous of people to open up their gardens to let citizens show up and look around, and I think it just speaks to the citizens of Raymond and how nice they are and how open they are, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I agree as well. I think it's a great thing, and if there's more items that can raise money for the Raymond Library, I think it's great. So, good luck.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any further comment?
I just wanted to say the town will provide whatever support we can. If there's anything else we can do, let us know. We'll try to help with traffic and safety issues. We hope there's a crowd large enough to warrant that.
No further comment? All in favor? Carried. Congratulations. Mrs. Gifford, are you still here?
I'm here.
Good.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, thank you. By the way, I call her that at home, too. That's what she made me.
You believe that, of course.
What does she call you, sir?
Hey, you.
The proclamation. Whereas the Raymond Beautification Committee has developed a volunteer-based group to keep the town of Raymond a more attractive place to live and visit. And whereas the Raymond Beautification Committee has promoted the town of Raymond through their efforts and to make the town of Raymond a more colorful and visually attractive place to work and live. Whereas the Raymond Beautification Committee seeks grants, gifts, and supports fundraisers like the 2013 Garden Club Tour to finance the upkeep and purchase of the flowers and other landscaping enhancements, and Now therefore, be it ordered and resolved that the Raymond Board of Selectmen commends the Raymond Beautification Committee for their many years of service in ordering the month of June as Raymond Beautification Month, passed and proclaimed by the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next, consideration of creating a boat launch ordinance. Peggy Jensen. Hi, Peggy. I know it.
I'm Peggy Jensen. I live at 315 Meadow Road, and thank you for putting us on your agenda tonight. I'm really speaking for a small group of folks who came together last fall. We're loosely organized. We didn't have a real chairperson. We all did tasks that came up as our skills and time allowed. We all happen to be members of the Raymond Waterways Protective Association, some directors, some officers, and Betty Williams is the executive director. She was part of our group. We're also all actively involved in numerous boards and committees and organizations in town, so we really have an interest and an investment in our town. We really care about it. I'm going to be using we and us as I talk about this because if you need to know who did exactly what, we can probably sort that out, but it's hard to remember. So I'm just going to talk about we. We're really here to ask for your support for the concept of developing some regulatory language regarding boat launch sites in Raymond. And we hope that you will not only support us, but that you'll refer us to the appropriate person or persons to help us get this worded right. As you know, Stephanie Carver has looked at it, the planning consultant, and has given some constructive and instructive comments, and clearly we need to work some more on this. So we're hoping that you can steer us where we should go. There's some essential information that might help explain how we got here. The Maine Department of Conservation and the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife are the two kind of key players at the state level on these boat launch issues. And in the mid-90s, they developed a strategic plan for attaining public access to the waters of Maine where recreational opportunities exist. So here in Raymond, we have many water bodies. And the plan originally listed 3 water bodies in Cumberland County as highest priority for developing public access: Peabody Pond in Sebago, Highland Lake in Bridgeton, and Panther Pond in Raymond. Peabody Pond and Panther Pond remain on that highest priority list. They have developed an access on Highland Lake. The high emphasis is placed by these two agencies on developing boat access to lakes in all of southern Maine because that's where the people and the boaters are concentrated. The typical pattern in the past has been for the state to acquire legal access to a water body. That is, they acquire a parcel of land that gives them public access to a water body. They develop a boat launch site, and to their credit, in recent years, certainly those have been environmentally sensitive. And then they turn to the town and say, we've done such a great job, we're sure you'll like this. Now we'd like you to maintain and operate it. So part of what we did was look at this, how can we help our town get ready for this to happen? Because obviously we're on a high priority list, it's going to happen one day. A little history. About 10 years ago, you may recall that Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife tried to develop a boat launch on Raymond Pond. Some folks in town thought that was a great idea. Some folks had concerns about the way where the site was located. And in the end, that site was not developed because the state was unable to secure public access across a private right-of-way. And it turns out it really didn't matter what we here in town thought about it one way or another. They couldn't achieve that access, so it didn't go forward. A couple years after that, there was a property for sale on Panther Pond. This property had a year-round home on it. We know that IF&W made an offer for that property. the sellers chose to sell to some young people instead, and those young folks have done a great deal of work on the property and have greatly enhanced its value. So the town actually benefited from that. You're getting more taxes from that particular piece of property. At about that time, some folks in the Panther Pond Association did some research. We wanted to learn how other towns had experienced having the state come in and develop boat launch sites in their towns, and what could we learn from their experiences. A summary of that research was they advised us to be prepared in advance, to have some regulatory language in place, such as an ordinance, so that the town can have some say in how that site will be developed and how it will operate. Unfortunately, we dropped the ball on that, and nothing happened at that time. There's another property in town. To my knowledge, it's never been on the market, at least not in recent years. It's been owned by the same family for generations, and has been of interest to IF&W for a long time. They periodically contact that owner to see whether or not they're interested in selling for a boat launch site. So clearly, Raymond is got a star position in this issue for the state. And then last fall, there was another property in Panther Pond that came on the market. Within a short time of its being advertised publicly, the town received an inquiry from the Department of Conservation about the town's criteria for evaluating potential lake access sites. That means, of course, a boat launch. The owner of that particular property has told us that the state has offered over $1 million for about 6 acres of land. The most recent information we have is that that offer is still open. When this came about, a number of us, a number of people who had been involved in some of those earlier incidents, recalled them and recalled the earlier research and said, oh man, we should have done something about this years ago. We better get on it. And so the small group formed. We did some more research. We tried to pull together language that would be helpful to our town. We quickly realized that we couldn't get anything together in time to meet the June, coming right up, town meeting, but we decided it was important enough that we wanted to continue to work on it. We asked for help. We got some suggestions. The biggest message was, put something together first. So we did. What we'd really like to have is some language in place so that our town will be in a position to say, the next time the state attempts to develop a boat launch site on one of our water bodies, yes, we'd like to work with you on that, and here's how the people in our town want to have that happen. We would like to be able to have some input, because clearly, if the state acquires land, it's going to happen. And we'd like to have our town be able to say, well, here's what we'd like it to look like. We were guided in our work by the documents that the town has already drawn up. One important one was a comprehensive plan. That expresses a number of qualities that the people of the town value, such as maintaining our water quality and maintaining the rural character of the town. We tried to address such issues as safety, protection of the water quality, other environmental concerns, respect for neighboring properties, and the cost to the town. Now, the state has several dedicated funds available for use for acquiring land for water access. This does not come out of the general fund. Lots of people have said to us, oh, you know, the state doesn't have any money, they can't do that. Well, there are pots of money that they can do this. There's one called the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund. That generates almost $1 million from special lottery ticket sales. There's the Land for Maine's Future Bond. 10% of that is designated for water access. And we just passed a bond, I believe, the last fall. Then there's something called boat access grants. The money for that's generated from gasoline taxes. There are also some federal monies available that are passed on through the state. So there's plenty of money out there for them to do this. We tried to look at a couple of parcels that we were aware of. The one on Plains Road that is for sale now has been redrawn in such a way that I was unable to find tax data information about the way it is configured now, so I can't give you accurate information about that particular property. But I looked at the one that was the year-round home that had been bought by a private party and has been redeveloped. It's now taxed at about $6,000, and that's for about 2.6 acres with water frontage. And as I said, IF&W did attempt to purchase that. I looked at a similar parcel to the one that's for sale on Plains Road that's only 3 acres instead of 6, without any house on it. It's not a year-round home or even a seasonal home. That's now taxed at about $6,000. If we have a boat launch developed in town, we need to have, at least on weekends and holidays, some courtesy boat inspectors on duty to protect our water bodies. And right now, a conservative estimate for that coverage of weekends and holidays is about $2,500. So just suppose, whether it's a Plains Road property or not, just suppose the state did purchase 2 to 3 acres of land, waterfront property. Immediate cost to the town is about $6,000 lost tax revenue. Another $2,500 just to do the courtesy boat inspection. And then we need to think about addressing things like toilet facilities, trash removal. Even if we did a carry-in, carry-out policy, we still need some kind of receptacle for people to put any kind of aquatic plant that's removed from the boats and trailers needs to be confined to a receptacle instead of risking having it washed back in the lake. So we're talking probably roughly about $10,000 a year cost to the town for a new boat launch to be developed. We tried to think of some creative ways to generate some revenue to offset this. And I'm going to show my age now, but when my children were young, quite young, and they're now in their mid-30s, so we're talking 25 or 30 years ago, I recall having a sticker that it allowed us to go to the dump and go to, I think it was Crescent Beach, allowed us to park at Crescent Beach, the Crescent Lake Beach. So we said, well, what if we had a sticker or a hang tag program? Maybe we could give preference to Raymond residents. Maybe they could pay a small annual fee, or maybe they would have no fee. Maybe non-property owners in Raymond could have some kind of a daily fee. This, of course, involves some kind of administrative process, so it gets a little more complicated. Or, and this was something that was suggested way back, we can't take credit for thinking this up. It was suggested way back at the time that the state was trying to develop on Raymond Pond. What if we put in our language that the developer, whoever it is, of a boat launch site, established an investment account with the town as part of the cost of development? And the funds from that investment account could then be used to help offset the costs of maintaining. I guess we're saying, why don't we change the paradigm? Instead of having the state say, here's a great asset, we're going to give it to you. We won't tell you how much it's going to cost to operate every year. Why don't we say, well, that's great, but we expect you to help us out with how we're going to do that. So, as I said earlier, we hope that you will support the concept of creating some regulatory language to protect our town. And we also hope you'll steer us to the right people to help trim up the language. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Peggy.
I think,
No.
Peggy, I have some questions for
I
you.
have a couple myself.
Yeah. Is it rumor or is it fact that there's some kind of an offer out there?
It's fact. The owner said to me, told me,
That he has an offer from the state?
on the Plains Road property, which is now for sale, that he has an open offer of over $1 million for 6
From the
acres.
state?
From the state.
I don't believe
I
it.
don't either.
Okay?
I-
Land for Maine's Future has no money. The Heritage Fund has no money. There is no money.
It's not IF&W that's offered it.
What was
I
that?
think it's Department of
It's not
Conservation.
IF&W that has offered it.
I think it's Department of Conservation.
That, they have no money either. The other issue you have, the state, if they come in and buy property, it must be free. There is no way to charge, even if the town says, we want to charge. It's free. The only option you have is for the town to buy the land. And then you could charge fees and do whatever you want.
Is that, I don't know, is that a state law that
Yes.
if state property
Yep.
can have no,
Yes.
could we ask our delegation to address that?
You can ask them all you want, but, you know, it's been a tradition in Maine for centuries.
I guess that's part of what we're hearing from other towns is, man, we got stuck with this, and how can we change it?
I mean, you have to think, though, I mean, there are a lot of lake owners who don't want people to have access, but the majority of Maine citizens and visitors to the state want access. That's a dilemma you have. It's all in how you manage it, but I think having free access from the state, in the long run, is a good thing. I mean, and you can get to Panther Pond now, you can put in at Crescent Lake and go down the
Right.
river, and, I mean, it's not like you can't get there.
I think we very
That's
clearly.
why I really doubt that there's some kind of $1 million offer from the state.
Well, I was told that another person had actually seen the contract offer, so I can't say that I've seen it, but I was told that another person had seen it.
Dana?
I just wanted to say that we were trying to be very, very clear in the language that we did use, that this is not an attempt to prevent access to water bodies. It's an attempt to protect our town
Right,
in
totally agree
in
with
whatever way that we can.
Right, no,
And
totally,
if we can-
I'm
if we-
in total
if we- If we
agreement.
can change the rules of the game, that would be great.
But it's been my experience that the state comes in and works with the town, just like they did when we did the 302 one. You know, they didn't just come in and say, this is how you're gonna do it. There was a back and forth
Yes.
on how that was gonna run.
Well, as I said, I think I said, unless I skipped over it, there was an early inquiry as to what criteria the town had. So we're saying, let's get some criteria, let's get some language in there so that we can respond to that. Because right now, there isn't very much.
Criteria, who asked? This was someone from the state?
Hang on just a moment.
Something.
I remember very clearly the Raymond Pond issue 10 years ago, and I can tell you that there's been no contact on this with me, and, you know, we worked hand in hand on the Raymond Pond issue, and so I've not had any discussions or negotiations or input from the state on this. The only thing I guess that I can relay recently was I did get a call perhaps a year ago asking me if our commitment to, you know, this sort of thing was still in place, and I said it would depend on each application. You know, we were discouraged with the way the Raymond Pond issue went, and I won't get into that, but the Board of Selectmen at that time did unanimously, I believe, support access, and so we knew about it from the very beginning, that one, and we're part of the planning process. So I would say if they were planning something on Panther Pond and we didn't know it, that would be highly, highly unusual.
This is an email dated, well, on October 4th, sent from Danielle, Danielle to James Seymour and Stephanie Carver with a copy to Don Willard. It references a request from Mr. Powell from the Department of Agriculture and Forestry, which also has conservation in it, for site evaluation criteria. And then the copy of that letter goes back to, it is October 4th. Dear Mr. Seymour, blah, 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 where criteria for evaluating potential lake access sites.
Yeah, what I'm
That's
saying
from
is
George Powell.
if they were going to develop something, they would be in heavy contact pretty regularly with us.
Well, this happened almost immediately after the property on Plainsboro went on the market.
Right, and then nothing, as far as I know, beyond that happened. I'm saying that there hasn't been any to my knowledge, any planning, maybe somebody else in the
Well,
organization.
I don't believe they've acquired the property.
Well, what I'm saying is that before they acquired the last one, there was a lot of contact and a lot of planning. Before they failed to acquire the last one, I should say.
Well, they failed to acquire that right of way, right.
Right, but I'm only speaking to the issue of whether there's an active proposal or not. I don't know there is what I'm saying.
I don't believe that there is. But that just happens to be the spur that's reminded us, oh, yeah, we need to address this.
Right.
So whatever happens there, it happens.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Dana?
Dana Desjardins, 64 River Road. I spoke with Mr. Powell today at around 3 o'clock in regards to this parcel. The state is actively seeking that parcel. There is an ongoing talks with the owner of the property. The problem the state has right now is what Joe said. They don't have the money. The $1 million offer is not so. The owner asked for the state to purchase the 2 parcels. The state didn't want to spend the money on the second parcel. They still are looking into this, and they're going to try to resolve this at some point, and they're hoping to gain access to Panther Pond via the Plains Road. I also spoke with Mr. Powell on what the environmental impact compared to what our 2 sites. We currently have one on Mill Street, which is private land transaction, in 2 weeks from now could close that one down. The town does not own that. The owner of that property is generous enough to allow access to that site and the other access to Panthers through the Tenney River. Back 5 years ago, I think it was about 5 years ago, Sam, I contacted the Department of Conservation. They are in charge of signage that go on lakes and streams. We had an issue with people going a little too fast on the Tenney River. The Tenney River, is a very special place for me. I know a lot of people that go there, and Mr. Powell felt that the environmental impact on a site off the Plains Road would be less of a problem than what's going on the Tenney right now. The Tenney has multiple loon nesting sites, and in the summertime, sometimes the water's kind of low, but there's a lot of other wildlife that accesses that space, and I mean, I've even seen Joe Bruno going down there with his jet ski, so a couple times. So,
and it's less than 5 miles an hour.
And he was obeying the law, but those signs did help. The traffic has definitely slowed down. I keep an eye on it, and I live on the River Road, and I go down there quite frequently. But the state is currently seeking to purchase that property, and it's between the landowner right now and the state to come up with the funds. And according to Mr. Powell today at roughly 3 o'clock, I spoke with him. The price just wasn't in their range. And as far as the boat launch being free, those funds that come federally come from sportsmen who buy ammunition, fishing equipment, and that's a lot of that money is invested all over the country for different access to either waterfowl, duck habitats, boat launches. There's a lot of things that sportsmen dollars support and in an environmentally friendly way. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, a couple of those signs are still up, Dana.
That's good.
Yep. Any other comment? Charlie?
Just to correct the record, and this is just a historical artifact now, but it shows a certain amount of consistency. 10 years ago on the Raymond Pond issue, the vote was 4-1. I voted against it, not because I don't believe that citizens throughout the state of Maine, visitors, should have access to our lakes, but I think this might be instructive to this point, is that Inland Fisheries and Wildlife hadn't done their homework. When they had come to us, there were obvious gaps in the information that they were providing the Board of Selectmen at the time, major gaps, which I think later on when they went to negotiate the property, they had no access, public access to the lot. So I think that's instructive to this case, that we should be looking at issues with an eye towards making sure that the process is being followed first and foremost, and if there is no process in place, then maybe that should be something that needs to be looked at. My suggestion, Peggy, only because you have asked for some steering advice, my steering advice would be to the planning board. I think Stephanie Carver has indicated that there's issues with the shoreland ordinance, that a standalone ordinance is probably not as good if there is to be language to incorporate that into, if it were to be accepted by the town, because we all know that it would be still have to be voted on by the people in the town. So that would be my suggestion.
Yes.
I think one of the things we need to do as a select board is have Don, town manager, call the Department of Conservation tomorrow and find out what's really going on. Because, you can talk to the landowner all you want. If somebody's looking to sell their property for more money than maybe it's worth, and, you say, I have this offer out there. And whether or not it's true or not, you can build that up all you want. I don't know Mr. Powell, so I have no reason to doubt what he's saying, but, it'd be nice to know.
I'll do that. I just think it's curious that it would be that far along and we would not have any contact with them based on what happened the last time.
Yeah.
So I'll check into it.
Anything else?
And I think when we get the answer back, we should, bring it back on the agenda and talk about it. And then at least say, okay, if the town does come in with a boat launch, or the state comes in with a boat launch, what can we do as a town? I mean, that's all part of the negotiation process. The state rarely would come in and dictate what the town should do.
Right.
I agree. I think that our next step should be Don talking with the state. Leave it at that and keep
My
it
name's Ernest Allen. I, along with a few others, own a pretty good-sized hunk of property in Panther. But I've been around here long enough that I've seen the state work their magic. I remember when they took away the fish hatchery #1. People in Raymond at that time said, we don't want to lose the hatchery. People in Casco says, we don't want the hatchery. But the state moved the hatchery anyhow. That's the way they have to do anything. They do as they please. They find the ways to get around what they should or shouldn't have done. And the people like us are out in the cold. Now, this is not really an issue of whether you want a boat launch on Panther. For years, we have allowed them to put fish in Panther from our beach. I've had fishermen come up and say, how come we have no fish land in here? And I said to the guy, I said, do you want to fish or do you want to argue the fact that they don't have a place to put the fish in? They've always had the place to put the fish in. But this issue is simply that what we would like to see is if they're going to put a boat landing on Panther, which we know eventually will happen, what we would like to see is that they have ample parking. They have bathroom facilities so they don't interfere with people's private property. And that they do a decent way of doing it. Now, everything that the town of Raymond has got as far as the waterways, the parks and so forth, we've done more than an adequate job. I don't think anybody can say that Raymond hasn't done an adequate job. We took over the town park, we've taken over the Veterans Park, which we can all be proud of. Now, if we wait till somebody inks a deal on a piece of property to put in a boat launch, we're too late. And all we're asking is, maybe we ought to get some criteria in the works and get a look at it long before the state does they damn well please, and we're the losers. Thank you.
Thank you. Lonnie?
I 100% agree with him. I think that we should definitely call the state and see where we're at with that, but we should definitely move forward with some type of criteria to make sure that we have the ball rolling and not just sit on our hands until then.
We can work with.
So I do believe that we need to make a move, even though it's maybe only a thought at this point.
I agree, and we can agree to work with Peggy and her group.
Great, thank you.
To work with you.
Mr. Powell works for boating facilities with the Department of Conservation, Agriculture, and Forestry.
Boating, did you say boating?
Boating facilities.
Yep.
He's in charge of locating new boating facilities.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we will leave it at that and move forward. Don is going to make his phone call, and once we get that information back, I think we can begin discussions and begin work with Peggy Jensen and her group, and I know George Clark and a number of other people around it, because I had calls on this during the week, so thank you very much, Peggy, and thank you. We're all set on that. Next on the agenda is consideration of creating an elderly tax relief program.
That's been
No,
tabled.
that one's
Huh?
pushed to the next.
Is tabled?
Yep, to the next
Okay, that is tabled.
firework.
Consideration of creating fireworks ordinance. Ms. Julie Sutherland.
Hello. Little tight fit. My name is Julie Sutherland. I live on Ledge Hill Road. Ever since the state of Maine has legalized the use of fireworks, which are only supposed to be ground level fireworks, it's not supposed to be the tubes or the high rocket fireworks or anything like that, the bottle rockets. Those are all illegal. But we have a lot of fireworks happening. As you saw in your e-packet, I sent you the list from the fire marshal with all the towns concerning different ordinances. And I sent you also a report from Chief Tupper concerning a fire that we had just a little over a week ago that was pertaining to the cause from fireworks. What I see with the warmer weather coming and what I saw last summer, that with residents not pertaining or restricting themselves to what is actually legal fireworks, which are ground level. We've had a dry season, even though we had a lot of snow. We have a lot of woods in Raymond. we don't have a lot of waterway or water access for the fire departments on a lot of the different parts of the town. And I think it's time that the town, the select board, think about putting a fireworks ordinance into effect, putting such as like a time limit on certain days around the 4th of July, Labor Day, January 1st, New Year's, time limits during the day, restrictions on footage limits from structures, residents, homes, garages, barns. I'm just looking for the safety for everybody involved. For like us, we about Morgan Meadow. It's 2,400 acres back there. We have no water access on our end. It would take the fire department from Gray about 15 minutes to get to us, and it would take the fire department from 302 even longer. And we have a barn, and I keep the barn full of hay, the loft full of hay, and I have the 2 horses in the barn. And I'm thinking of the other people in the area with the fireworks that's happening in the dry season, and like down on North Raymond Road, they go out in the field across from the cemetery and they're lighting them off. They're lighting them off at 12:30 at night. 1:30 in the morning, they're flying up over my barn. 5:45, 3 weeks ago in the morning. Why anybody would let off fireworks then, I have no idea. But for the safety of the town, and because we are such a forested, wooded area, I love our location, but I worry about the irresponsibility of people in the town with this the state of Maine legalizing the fireworks. I think we need to put in talk about and design an ordinance. In your e-packet, I think there was 10 pages from the Maine Fire Marshal with the different ordinances. Like, if we're worried about finances for, if we catch somebody illegally letting off fireworks, we can incorporate in the ordinance that if any resident wants to let off fireworks, they need to get a permit from Chief Tupper. The permit would cover for address of where they're being fired. Along with the ordinance, it would state the times that they were allowed to be fired off, give them a copy of what is legal and what that is not legal for fireworks to be fired, the footage amountage, and they lead, apply for the permit like a burning permit for what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, neither Raymond nor Gray, and I called a couple other places, and it was 2 weeks or more, 4 weeks here, 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there, no burning permits whatsoever, but fireworks were going off. They want to have the fireworks, incorporate the permit in with the ordinance. They pay for the permit to help bring back into the town the cost of the fire department, damage, lawyer, summons. You can even set up like a fine schedule, a fine chart. First fine, what, maybe $50 for illegal fireworks or for letting off fireworks without a permit. But I foresee, because of the warm weather that we've had, the dryness, you can dig down in the ground even in the rain we've had. What are we back up to a category, what is it? We're back up to a 3, okay? I know, I was out digging out trees today. You can dig down in the ground, you don't even go a foot, and it's dry down in there. So we're already at a 3. I think it's time that the town, the board, the people think about an ordinance with maybe a permit requirement incorporated in it.
Julie, didn't you get some signatures?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Would you tell us about that?
Well, it's kind of hard with all the work schedules everybody has. But all the people that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of people, I got 20 signatures. And I've talked to many more people, and they're all worried about the same thing, and they're all stating the same thing. They've got fireworks late at night, dry season, up over their house, up over their barn, and they're all supporting. In between the 20 signatures and all the other numerous people that we've talked to about it, they're all, it's like, yeah, they're really worried that because of our situation with water, woods, dryness, and no regulations or requirements or ordinance, something's going to happen.
Julie, I'm sure many citizens here, Raymonders, agree with you. I know I do. And I'd like Chief Tupper to address this subject, and there are one or two problems with it. And I know he agrees with you too, so.
Good evening. Bruce Tupper, Fire Chief, Town of Raymond. I did pull up some facts and figures, and I thought this might be kind of interesting coming into this. In March of 2013, the Fire Marshal did a report on Channel 6 and reported that in the year, this one-year recap, there have been 11 fires in structures, that there have been 38 wildland fires and 19 injuries. This is in comparison to Maine CDC and Burn Foundation figures, which date from 2010 to 2000 to 2011, which report only 58 fires and $232,000 worth of damage. Also 52 people that were injured, 3 of them which were actually admitted into the hospital prior to fireworks becoming legal. As I stood here last year and testified to that, I can't do that without stating it would be wrong to allow fireworks. It would be wrong for us to, as a public safety entity, say that we back this. The state did kind of throw us a curveball and left us without a regulatory mechanism, if you will, as we don't have a police department that can write summonses, etc. So my feelings have to be tempered with the reality that we really don't have any method of enforcement. If I am sending fire trucks out to find firework complaints and things like that constantly, that's a cost that we're going to have to incur. So I looked at some of the issues around, and I talked with the law enforcement entities, Cumberland County Sheriffs, the state police, and while they could and probably would enforce an ordinance level ban on fireworks, it would not be a priority to them. One of the departments I spoke to today was North Yarmouth, who did pass an ordinance banning fireworks and their use in their town. And in talking with them, they were aware of one complaint that had happened recently, and it didn't go anywhere because the sheriff had other priorities and couldn't get to that call. So this is the kind of thing that concerns us as we talk about this. And as Julie said, we have spoken on the phone a couple of times about this, and there is that component. And I think she's hitting on some of the issues that we're going to need to address if we're going to consider this. There are many ordinances out there. There are many towns that have not adopted them. For instance, the town of Gray revisited it this year and decided not to do anything. They've had a couple noise complaints about the fireworks being after hours. But other than that, they're not aware of anything that they've had in their town. And the same with Wyndham. But their chief feels that they will revisit this again very shortly, that there's some strong opposition to the fireworks going on. Town of Yarmouth has an ordinance. They've had no issues, maybe a noise issue. Cumberland has an ordinance and allows it on 6 days a year. Basically, it's the 2 days around 4th of July and the same around New Year's. And they have specific times that they built into that. So moving forward with what I have to say is, yes, I absolutely support something that makes our town safer. And as you can see from the data it presented, that we're incurring more incidents with fire, with injuries, since the fireworks have been allowed. However, what we need to wrap our heads around is how would we ever enforce this? What would give us teeth in an ordinance to enforce it? Safety concerns need to be addressed. There are some aerial fireworks that are allowed. It's the rocket ones that aren't allowed, but there are some aerial ones that are allowed in the law. Right, and those would be commercial fireworks versus consumer fireworks. When you buy consumer fireworks, there's a variety of safety programs right at the stores where you purchase these things. There is constantly running video. There are directions on the box, but unfortunately, and as the fire marshal has said, we're challenged in that area with some of our adults in not getting that education. It's printed on the box, but you can't force them to read it. So therefore, some of our injuries that have occurred have absolutely been because of people failing to adhere to those safety regulations. The gentleman cut and modified a block of fireworks, and the wick was too short, and he shot it in his face. These are the types of things that we're seeing, and their stupidity, and we can't regulate stupidity. So I guess moving forward, how do we protect the citizens, protect our properties, and put something in place that will allow us to enforce it? The piece that's important to understand is that the DA will not prosecute or pay for the prosecution of an ordinance-based violation. Therefore, it would be incumbent on the town to take these to court and defend them, even if the county or state police wrote the summons on these. So these are some problematic issues I think that we need to really look at. While I'm against them, I'm actually a realist as well, and I think we need to address these and come up with some real solutions before we can move forward.
Chief, the numbers you gave us were statewide numbers, or were those Raymond numbers?
Those were statewide numbers,
What were
not
the
Raymond.
Raymond numbers last
We
year?
have had one incident, and it was in October or November on that report, whatever the date was. It was a small fire caused by a firework that went astray, launched through someone's yard, landed in a pile of leaves, and caused a small fire on Raymond Hill Road. Time before that was up on North Raymond Road, and it was a bottle rocket that, a fairly sizable smudge about the size of this room before we could arrive.
So all the after hours, I mean, the law is specific, I was just
It
reading
is
the law.
specific.
It's specific when you can do this.
Yes, it is.
You know, and people who break the law,
Correct.
how are we gonna
That's
stop
where
them?
you've got teeth in the law, is to enforce the noise or the launching after hours. And understand this, that for years it was illegal to launch fireworks. And unfortunately, we couldn't enforce it when it was illegal. I'm trying to grasp, how do we enforce it now if we create an ordinance to make it illegal again? Yes, sir.
Bruce, if we were to, let's say, allow a burn permit-like permitting system, how would that differ from the burn permit as far as enforcement is concerned?
Well, we look at it in two pieces, I think. One is that if we're issuing a permit, it gives us an opportunity to explain limitations to a person. When we issue a burning permit, we're issuing it under the laws of the state of Maine. So anything we write or I write as a restriction to that permit is, if it's broken, a violation of law where we can have that summons. It's actually a criminal action if you violate the burning permit requirements.
Right.
It's a criminal summons. And therefore, it's fairly easy for us to take those to court and to defend those, because the law enforcement officer would have to do so, and we can then bill for our time. If we're talking an ordinance and a permit based on an ordinance, and the law is very specific and does allow us to put that in place, I just question whether we'll be able to have that same bite. I think it's a good opportunity for us to maybe get some educational components out there to folks to specify distances and what you can and cannot shoot off for fireworks. So that may be something to look into, and it's just, again, our concern would be, how do we enforce that? What kind of teeth are we going to have in enforcing that? Or are we going to be a standalone trying to pay for going to court to prosecute any violations?
Yes. Chief, how are you gonna, if someone doesn't have a permit and is shooting off fireworks, you're gonna go chase them down and say, where's your permit?
Well,
I mean, I think you have more important things to do, just like the county sheriffs tell you.
Correct.
It's not a priority.
Correct. It isn't a priority for them, and therefore, you know, we could go out, absolutely we can go out. It's going to create some more call volume for us, some more cost for us, and I think my concern is those types of situations could lead us to a big party, maybe some poor interactions with the public if we're telling them to close down the fireworks. Again, I'm concerned with having teeth in what we do. I don't want to put myself or my guys out there and come in and tell you got to close down your fireworks show and not have something to back us. The law itself, and Julie highlighted it here, says a municipality obviously may require a fee for a permit under the subsection, et cetera, and we may require permits. That in itself allows us to do the permits, but it's the enforcement component that I'm worried about. So I think if we're going forward, we really need to do some research on this and figure out legally what we can do.
Monty?
I like the direction that we're heading towards. I think there needs to be some type of rule structure to stay within. One of my fears, and maybe looking into it too deep, is that if we give a permit to an individual, and then we even our permit, the situation, we take it to the next level and we say part of the permit procedure is for us to go to where you're going to be setting it off and inspect to make sure how you're going to do it is legit. But we do that, they light off within rules or laws, what they light off is fact, and they burn the neighbor's house down. Are we partially liable for saying everything that you did was right? Or you know, where do we stand on that? Does that make the
Right.
town partially
I
liable?
want to look into that specific to this. If I issue someone a burning permit to burn a pile of brush, and I set those safety guidelines in place, and they allow that fire to escape, it's their responsibility under the laws of the state. They were the ones that had the permit, they started it, and were supposed to control it. Now, whatever the circumstances that caused it to get out of control is their responsibility, not ours. I'd want to look at it specific to fireworks and make sure that we are protected for sure. And Joe, you're right on the hours of fireworks, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., except for on the following holidays where it's 9 to 12:30.
And many of the towns have set up their own timeframes that fireworks can be set off.
Scarborough's the one that has
Yeah,
two.
there's
Cumberland.
several of them that have set it off. In the e-packet, in the fire marshal's report, the entire list, and it shows you also if the forestry department is at, some of the towns are 1 and 2, they're okay, but, you know, but when it hits like 4 or 5, or even 3, the fireworks can't be let off. They've got time limits of 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., except for the holidays of July, the July 4th, New Year's, like around that area. Some of the towns, if you've looked at the e-packet and saw the fire marshals, they have set footage limits from structures. And also in your e-packet, there was several different printouts and publications from accidents, if you want to call them, people being hurt, buildings being burnt due to fireworks. There was one in there, and I took reports and newspaper articles from Maine and from the United States and from around the world. And there's some of the reports in there that I did include because they were pretty gruesome. Some people are throwing fireworks and illegal fireworks or fireworks into cars because they're mad at somebody, lighting them up over their barn because they're teed off at somebody, attaching them to animals and setting them off, and the animal's been blown up and killed, continuously firing them off or at. Equine stables and horses have gotten so stressed out that they've actually died.
See, but you can't prevent that. You can't prevent a stupid person.
No, but if you
With an
put,
ordinance.
right, and we had, you know, it is a stupid, irresponsible person, but have no ordinance, and and with the permit you'll give, included in the ordinance, you'll give Chief Tupper and even the CEO, Chris, some teeth to bite with and set up a fine chart. I foresee, and I hate to say it, because the last fireworks that were set off at 1:30 a.m., I called, and Cumberland County Sheriff told me there was nothing they could do because we have no guidelines, that we have no ordinance.
Well, no, they broke state law. State law
It
says
skimmed
12:30
across,
a.m.
it skimmed across the top of my barn.
Yeah.
And I keep my lot full of hay, and
But if it's 1:30 in the morning, they're breaking state law. So,
They're not
you don't
gonna
need an
do-
ordinance
yeah.
to break, if they're breaking state law,
And I've been, you know-
they had enough teeth to do something.
But it's not just that one instance, it's all over Raymond that it is happening.
I mean,
I didn't even hit Raymond Cape. I stayed up in this area and talked to people. And I got 20 signatures, and I could have gotten so
mean,
many more.
I was concerned last year to see what effect it would have in Raymond. And down in my neck of the woods, I mean, there are a lot of people lighting off fireworks. But, I mean, maybe one or twice for the entire year did they go past 10 o'clock. And so,
I've been on your road. You have what, 3 houses on your road?
nah,
Wow, there's 2 new ones up above.
there's 7.
There's 7 now, yeah.
Huh.
I have 2,400 acres in Morgan Meadow behind me and a barn full of hay and 2 horses standing there.
Huh,
And it's
fine.
just not me. It's other people in the town that have the concerns and worries because we have no guidelines. And even though the state has put in the guidelines about being shut off, and each town has the ability to set their own guidelines and ordinances, in which 10 pages of them have.
Well, I'd like to see Chief Tupper and Don Willard look into this and see if there is a logical way to go about it. I think we should have some way of, I know there'd be minimal control, but it'd be we'll have a handle on it one way or the other. And I totally agree with it.
Can we get something on the website that, talks about responsible fireworks, safety? What are the laws? Just a quick.
It's available right on the marshal. I got the full, you got it right in
Well, I
your
know,
packet.
but if we have it on the town website,
I think
may
it'd
help.
be better if we took it to the next level and had a tutorial where someone was saying them.
Right.
Because there's some people that are like, I'm not gonna read that. But if they can hit play,
Yeah, well,
it'll go. I mean, and we're talking
I
about
think
some,
that's
some
only
ignorant
part of it.
people.
I think we
you know,
need to-
most people, if they're gonna light fireworks off, they're going to do it somewhat responsible. Of course, once it leaves the bottle or whatever it's coming from, they can't steer it. But
I think
it's
a
mostly
YouTube
like,
video with the chief.
there we go.
There you go. You could be a star, go viral.
I'll find someone to
Yeah,
act.
I saw another hand back there. Please, I can't see.
Teresa.
Oh, gee, I wouldn't have let you up if I saw
Oh,
who you
come
were.
on, Sam. Teresa Sadak, Webbs Mills Road.
Hi,
I think there's
Teresa.
a big difference. Hi, Sam. I think there's a big difference between a fire permit and, I mean, I agree with you, a fire permit and a permit
Yes,
for,
I know, yeah.
fireworks, because the people who get the fire permit are people who live in Raymond. They know each other, they know what the laws are. You've got people that come up for a weekend. They're on the camps, and they figure they hit down by Cabela's, there's a big store down there.
Yeah.
They've gotta be 21, I think it is, to buy them. They're coming back, they're having a few drinks, they're gonna set it off, and guess what? They're already gonna be done and cleaned up by the time the cops get here, or these guys. And I mean, and for Bruce, to me, he's gotta be paying attention for the fire calls and everything else instead of tracking these down. And I think it kind of refers back to like Chris Hansen going on somebody's property to do an evaluation for like a code enforcement. All of a sudden Bruce shows up and they're gonna look at him and go, who are you? You know what I mean? And what authority do you have? So I think there's a big difference between getting a permit for a fire and a permit for fireworks. And honestly, 21, 22-year-olds, when they're out drinking and stuff like that, they're not going to be reading. They don't care. They're having a party. They're up for the weekend, up to the lakes. They're at somebody's house. So unless we have some kind of teeth, like Bruce says, as far as a police department or something like that to enforce it, there's not a lot you can do.
Well, it's agreed that enforcement is very difficult.
Yeah.
Teresa, it's a very difficult thing. But we need to put it in someone's hands. In other words, we're saying we can't do anything about this. They're gonna burn down the woods on my property and my house along
Oh
with
no,
it.
they're gonna do it whether there's an ordinance or not. Unfortunately, it's sad that it's become illegal. thing, but you have all the camps, and I don't know what the camp requirements are, but I know all through the summer you hear all the fireworks going off at the camps, and I don't know if they have to get permits or what, but it's all over. And now that they've made it legal,
Following up on the idea of putting something on the website featuring the chief, I think that's a great idea, of course. We probably could make a written handout as well that we could mail to camp owners, people who have seasonal real estate, and there's a lot of folks who do that, so that they could make it available in their camps and rental housing. So people who are coming in from outside, even if they're 21, would at least be presented with that information as a part of the rental package.
Okay, that's fine. I still would like to ask the chief to follow up with any additional things. Yes, Charlie?
Chief, do you have emergency authority if we were in a drought-type situation like we were just a week or so ago, and it was in the middle of the summer and it was over the July 4th weekend? Would you have the authority to be able to ban the use of fireworks despite the state law?
Unfortunately, no.
The state fire marshal does.
Yes, the fire marshal does, and similarly to campfires. I have no control over campfires. The only thing we can do in a drought or a very high or extreme fire danger is have a governor's ban, and then we can enforce that. Those are the only ways I can do that. I can ban brush burning and debris burning, but not when it's in a campfire range. And for recreational purposes, I have to go on record as saying that too. It's not burning and stuff that's in your yard. Yes, it's designed to be a campfire.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you, Chief. I think what I am going to ask the chief to do is to look into it as he agreed to before, to see what additional things we can do beside informational things. And
But we're going to do the informational stuff.
we're going to do the informational stuff. But I'd like to see if we can go any further with it. I think, Joe, you're probably right, we can, but we're going to look into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next, when we're ready, informational presentation and consideration of Raymond Community Forest Project off Coneska Road. Chairman John Rand, Raymond Conservation Commission, and Executive Director Carrie Walia, Loon Line Trust. Thank you, John.
Howdy, folks. Howdy, everybody. John Rand, Raymond Conservation Commission. I want to do a quick overview of the land conservation opportunity that's in front of Raymond, and take it that you have a packet there that walks you through some of the high points of the project. I'm going to touch on background, project overview, some of the key schedule items, and then hit 3 or 4 of the kind of key details that are needed in the project. And then I'm going to let Carrie present some experience with other towns where they've done land conservation projects of a similar, larger scale. And she can also jump in anytime that I'm going off track here. So as a brief background, this work we're doing and continue to do with land conservation dates to really to the 2004 comprehensive plan that directed Raymond to prepare an open space plan. The Raymond Conservation Commission did that and presented that and it was approved by the town in April of 2008. We followed up on that work with a more regional program that was led by Loon Echo and the Trust for Public Lands to identify region-wide areas of interest, priority areas of interest and land protection. That was the Green Print project, which was finished in 2011. So those, that near decade of efforts to identify our most valuable natural resource places in Raymond and in the region gets us to where we are with this project, which kind of presented itself, I think, through the fact that it's a Pismire Mountain, certainly a high peak in Raymond, and with great views from the top, some existing trail access. The adjacent parcel off Kineska Road, between Kineska Road and Crescent Lake, is 200 acres of undeveloped land that certainly provides water resource protection, habitat, trail opportunities, forest management opportunities. So those features were considered along with some discussions between Loon Echo and Hancock Land Company about a year ago. And with the site walk over there, some members of the Conservation Commission went on that walk. We came to you in August 2012 to present some of the initial observations of that opportunity and the land. And the directive from the board to us was to go do our homework and get more information. So we're back tonight with that, and that's what your packets are about. Carrie diligently went, kind of took the lead on discussions with Hancock Land Company in terms of getting a sense of pricing and timing. They split the cost of an appraisal of the properties, and in some it's about 350 acres with about 150 on the mountainside and about 200 plus or minus on the Kineska Road side. So through Carrie's work in negotiating the project price, they also developed a project timeline for further exploring the opportunity to have a community forest for the town of Raymond, or in the town of Raymond anyways, that would potentially be owned by the town of Raymond with a conservation easement held by Loon Echo Land Trust. So the high points of the project have, I think it's on page 2 perhaps of your packet, that has a schedule outlined whereby there's about a 2-year timeline for Loon Echo to explore grant opportunities, state, federal level grant opportunities, pull that together and bring that back, that information back to the town, and to have target dates in the timeline that would be decision points. And one of those key decision points would be December 31st, 2014, when kind of a final decision on whether or not the project should go forward or not would be made, which is, what, a year and a half out. And so that would give Loon Echo, the town of Raymond, and time to understand whether the bulk of the funding for this project would be something that's available primarily from Community Forest Grant, which is a federal grant, and Land for Maine Futures Grant, which is a state of Maine grant. It would also give us time to kind of tune the level of funding that we'd need to come up with on our own. This isn't a free ride. This is about a 10 or a 20 cents on the dollar opportunity to have a community forest for the town of Raymond. So the timeline would start really tonight with a indication from the board of support for the project. It would continue through the month of May and into June with an ongoing community survey that we have active on the website, thanks to Danielle's magic and some other RCC board members, at least that's in, and we have some preliminary numbers from that. Did you just get an email from me earlier, Danielle? Good. So we can share that in a second. But for the project to go forward, Loon Echo needs to enter an agreement with Hancock Land Company between those two parties. Town of Raymond is not part of that agreement. That secures an option to purchase for Loon Echo to purchase by December 31st, 2014. That option would certainly be contingent on favorable progress being made on fundraising here in the town of Raymond, on Cary state and federal grants, and on the town of Raymond's approval. And we'd have the June 2014 meeting as one target to have the town vote.
John, are they gonna give you that much time, a year and a half, to?
So I think the short answer is, Joe, that Hancock is ready to give us that much time. And there's a nice bit of trust, I think, that's been developed between Hancock and Loon Echo, not just in Raymond, but on other projects. So we were able to leverage and, I think, take advantage of some of that relationship. So December 2014, drop dead date for exercising the agreement. If the signals are positive, let's say we've gotten some grants and there's strong community interest from the survey, then the way the agreement would be written would be that you'd have till December 2015 to purchase the property. A fair amount would have to fall into place, certainly during the year 2015, for that all to happen. But the key decision points would be whether we were the bulk of the way there with funding by the end of next year, 2014. So that is that's the timeline. Some of the key details that would need to be worked out along the way are obviously the grants, which would start to activate fall of 2013 or sooner. We'd be learning about when those RFPs come out for those grants. Land ownership is a kind of a key piece of the project that we would need to resolve. The simplest and preferred way from Loon Echo would be to have the town of Raymond take ownership of the property. Loon Echo would hold the conservation easement and the development rights of it. That process would require drafting and finalizing a conservation easement, which spells out the land uses that are acceptable and those that aren't. I mean, commercial forestry would be in, low recreation would be in, commercial development would be out. I know Charlie's going to want to ask about cell phone towers, so we'd have to talk about that. But mechanized trail use, snow machines, ATVs, all that would need to be worked out and is very much part of the details that would have to be resolved. There's plenty of templates in Loon Echo's inventory of easements to work from. Probably the final big piece, which ties into what I was just talking about, was a formal management plan that described where trails would be, how they'd be cut and maintained, a forest management plan of some kind for the property that would ideally provide some timber revenue. We have some initial rough estimates of that in your packet, I think. And finally, just some general maintenance of the property as needed for keeping any trash or other maintenance items taken care of. So that's the overview as we see it. The RCC is entirely behind the project. We think it's a great opportunity. It needs more help than just the RCC would be able to give it. And there's certainly some neighbors and stewards in the room I can see and there'd need to be more, but it would be a pretty cool project. I think I remember, Joe, once you asking back some years, how much land do we really think we're gonna protect? And I think my answer was, if we did something around 300 acres in a decade, we'd be doing our job. And I think we've done 19 over on Morgan Meadow. Have we done more? Can't remember. But that's certainly one that comes to mind in the time frame of our open space plan and such. So this one would be this would certainly be the big one. And you know, there's other pieces we've had our eye on. The Gay Meadow property up on North Raymond, haven't really had that one come at us. This one's coming at us. There's some local efforts on the Tenny River, which we plan to certainly continue to support, and would like to. We'll talk about that at a future meeting with you guys, and like to put some of our Raymond open space money towards that as well. But this, you know, we have some funds in the open space account, and we'd certainly think this would line up well with it. And I think at this point, I'll let Carrie have some words about some of her good progress and experiences with similar projects in other towns.
Thanks, John. Unless you have questions right away before we go into other towns
Yeah,
for what this town is facing.
I do. Have you considered allowing, you know, if it's owned by the town of Raymond, I assume you're gonna continue to allow hunting as part of the open space plan? Because it's a heavily hunted area.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of sportsmen in town who drive there and park their vehicles down a private road. And, you know.
I don't see any reason why not. Anything from your perspective?
No, I mean, part of Luneco Land Trust's goals is to preserve the public access that exists. And a lot of times it is on private property, so this would ensure public access for those things. And we are all for hunting. We allow hunting on all of our own property, and then when we work with easements, we discuss that with the partner or the landowner, and if that's a goal of the town, that's fine with us.
And the other thing is parking. I mean, this area is abutted by 2 private roads, you know, maintained by the associations. You know, and I think some of the association people might get a little upset if there's cars parked up and down the road.
Well, that can be easily addressed in the management plan. The good thing about log landings that go along with forestry, you have a big open area that you can work with to turn it into a parking area if you need that. But I believe I still have to get my hands on the deeds from Hancock Land Company, but I believe they own the actual roads and grant public access down the Hancock Drive or whatever it is, and a few others. So
They do own the road, but they make the associations pay for the maintenance.
okay, that's a good
So
point.
if you have heavier traffic,
Mhm.
those landowners down at the end, and me, you know, public disclosure, I'm one of them. You know, we pay for that road.
Well, I'd say in the management planning, just carefully consider that if that's an issue, and try to direct traffic to a site that's appropriate, and you can plan your timber management to then help you build your trails and help you build your parking area while you do that clearing of land.
Just something to consider, just
Sure.
throwing it out there.
Well, I just wanted to, again, John did bring this up, but Luneco Land Trust, you know, we're really here to help facilitate the goals of Raymond and your open space plan. We're skilled in project management, in grant writing, and fundraising. So we bring some skills to the table, and we're really willing to take on a bit of risk on behalf of the town in order to meet the needs of the seller, Hancock Land Company. They're being very generous with the time. Like you said, are we really getting all this time? And it's like, yeah, so it's great. We are getting a lot of time, but we need to decide tonight if the board is in favor of this concept proposal and will seriously consider working out all the details with Luneco Land Trust to ensure a successful project. But we're willing in the next 2 weeks to sign a low-risk option agreement to then buy that time. If we don't sign that low-risk agreement by the end of the month, we probably lose Hancock's interest and they will go elsewhere. So we are willing to do that. Our board of directors has voted to do that and put a small deposit down that we're willing to risk. If you show that you're enthusiastic and we're willing to set a few more steps throughout this year in 2014, and then we can revisit together, are we willing to then exercise the agreement and commit to purchasing the land at the end of next year? Making that commitment, then we have a whole nother year to actually purchase the property.
Yes. John, I guess this is directed to you. How much money do you have in the open space fund?
49,000.
If I remember, it's around 50,000.
That's right, Joe. Yep.
50,000.
Yep.
And then we have some tree growth that may be coming out this year, maybe. So
There
you
might
would
be a
have
little-
some more.
A little more coming.
Yeah.
We'd given an indication to the Tenney River Project earlier in the year and into last year to support that on the order of $10,000. And that's on a similar kind of phased out timeline. And I don't think they have any due dates before 2014.
And what was the price on the Tenney River property?
250, 225.
220.
200, 220.
And this is 571.
So 571 for 350 acres.
374.
374.
Don't forget that extra 24 acres.
So John,
We have 347.
347 in your paper?
Did we put 374?
I think you did.
John, on the 2014 town meeting, what are we asking for? Allocation of how much?
I would envision that by the 2014 town meeting, we'd have a sense of awards for Land for Maine Futures and the federal community forest grants. And let's just, in rough numbers, say that the land project is a $500,000 project, and let's say that Land for Maine Futures and the federal community forest project came through with $400,000. If we were that fortunate, we'd be very fortunate. I think the way the numbers worked out is that we had about 100 that would be 171 would be Town of Raymond, and then a private fundraising campaign. So to answer your question, Sam, $50,000 in concept would be what we'd look for from the Town of Raymond, and we'd then need to raise 120 locally through donors.
You say a citizen?
So it would be a warrant article for, I think there could
That
be
would
two
be,
pieces. There'd be one to authorize the select board to spend money from the Raymond Open Space Fund, which will be whatever, $30,000 or so. And then we'd need to have that additional 20, or whatever the number ends up being, the balance. That would be either from the general funds or a bond or any other mechanism that you folks see fit. So that's probably the better outcome version of how the numbers could go. Possible, right?
Let's hope they go there.
Let's hope they go that way.
Then perhaps at the same time, if you need voter approval to, if the town decides they do in fact want to own the land, which is what we're hoping, you could ask the voters, do you want to authorize the board to accept ownership of this land and negotiate the terms of the conservation easement? And then we really got things nailed down.
Okay. Comments? I'm looking. Charles?
You thought it was the the best scenario that you were able to receive the 400,000 from both the federal and the Land for Maine futures. So I guess looking down that path, what's your, let's say we receive the grant money, but say it's 300,000. Would the expectation be then that you'd be asking for more later? That would be something that the future select board and the town would have to discuss. That you wouldn't necessarily just up your private contribution from 120 to 220. If you're 100,000 shy, you'd be coming back and probably asking if we were to say tonight, this board were to say we're encouraging the effort, and I can't see why we wouldn't. Those are such great terms to have offered, and I want to thank Hancock and the Hancock family for working with us on it. Possibly they could even give us a better deal later on, possibly if the other grant monies didn't come in, that would be, I think, open-ended depending on what the economy looks like. But would you envision that there's a possibility, and we already discussed Land for Maine futures, they don't have, it's going to be an extremely competitive process, and you know that, you've gone through that many a time. So what would your optimistic number is 400,000. Give us just a quick little background on what do you think?
Why don't you go first, Carrie, and then I'll follow.
Yeah, we always, create a project budget early on and hope that it looks similar towards the end, and you're right, sometimes it may not. And like you said, grants are highly competitive, and Hancock Land Company totally understands that. So we don't want to, assume we're going to fail or anything, but once we know the results of the major grants that we're depending on, then we get back in the room together and look at the situation. I highly doubt that, Luneco and RCC would expect the town to just make up whatever difference is left. Yes, maybe we'd say, can the town do a little bit more, 25,000, another 50,000. I know in the RCC survey, it polled people, would you be willing to give up to 50, or would you be willing to give up to 100? And John can share those results. So I think they may be thinking it up to maybe, a certain number, but not expecting the town to make up the difference. And we wouldn't expect that. We just have to look at other resources, and you never know where there's a wonderful person in town that, this is something that is an attractive project to them, and perhaps they can make a major gift.
We would like his name.
Okay.
Or hers.
Thank you, yes.
Just a taste of the very preliminary survey results to kind of get at your question, I think, Charlie. And Danielle helped me out. We had 35 responses on our web survey that's on the front of the Raymond website. And 91% were in favor of the project. 67% said they'd support a $10,000 to $50,000 contribution, and 45% said they'd support a $50,000 to $100,000 contribution. This is very preliminary, and we're putting a note in the paper, hopefully in the Lake region, to encourage residents town-wide to get on it. I don't think there's that much traffic. When did it go up? Monday, Danielle? Sunday?
I put it up last.
Was it last week?
I put it up last.
What's today? Tuesday. Last Thursday. So it's been less than a week. But with more town-wide, hopefully, information that it's on the website and folks should go take it, and you can only go take it once before it kicks you out. So we haven't rigged it. But those were favorable indications, I think, for where we are in the process.
Well, Dave, yes, go ahead.
John, this doesn't include the 74 acres that were conserved with the Rosewood Heights development.
That is correct, Joe.
So
You are
in
correct.
total, you're close to 425 acres that would actually be part of that whole deal through there.
community conserve the open space
Right.
with that subdivision,
Right.
conservation land, yeah.
Now, you know, when you look at the map here, there are lots of landowners that abut this property. Lots of them. And, you know, I think you need to go talk to all of them.
They would get letters, I expect,
Well,
somewhere along the
I
process.
think it's knock
And
on
they'd
the
probably get a
door
knock on
and-
the door, yeah,
yeah.
right.
We got, yes, Charlie?
That 74 acres though would be open space, so that's not public land.
Correct.
That would still be private property to the
Landowner
to the
association
landowner
that's tied with that
association.
subdivision, yeah. There was one other statistic there I thought was interesting. Danielle, maybe you could help me out. The percentage, if you get Lee's email there, the percentage of folks that were in favor of it for watershed protection. It was there was a significant number of folks. I mean, they were certainly listing trails and
That's interesting.
and recreation and so forth. Don't know if we can find that, but we'll.
35% and 32% were in support of wildlife habitat, because they had to rank in order of importance from ATV use to low impact recreation, watershed protection, and wildlife habitat, so.
So 35% said watershed was the most important.
Yeah.
It wasn't just 35% were in favor of watershed.
Yes, Charlie?
And I think I'd be remiss, and I saw some of that in here on the economic model, because we looked at what those lost revenues or potential tax revenues from, we would have seen from tree growth, from the property. The other piece that we have to keep in mind, because the drumbeat we have heard has been jobs, 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 economy, 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 from almost every segment of society over the past 2 or 3 years. And what this would do conceivably is take out 83 building lots from the inventory. It's, whether you believe in the open space concept or not, I think it's still something, it's an elephant in the room that has to be at least put out there for the public to understand that if we were to do this and encourage this, and there are models, John, you and I have gone over this many years. If all 83 of those house sites come with 2 or 3 kids, that's gonna have a tremendous impact on the cost to the town of Raymond, because of the impact on the schools. If those 83 house lots are old folk like me, just me and my wife moving in and buying a house, it's a win situation for the town economically. So I know there's no way to project that number, because one house there may be a $2 million property, another one might be a $300,000 property. But once you put this into that conservation easement and the development is gone, there is a potential economic loss. Trying to figure that out would be almost impossible at this point, but I think it's something that should be at least in the body of the discussion.
Well, I mean, they've had approval since 2010, and there's not been a whole lot of interest in those 13 house lots that are
Right.
approved. There's 2 houses down there, and probably valued at less than $200,000 apiece.
And
There hasn't been a lot of interest in Raymond.
Right.
If you look at our building statistics in those same 2 years, not just particular to that lot or that segment of town, it's pretty much all over. I don't think any of us believe that's gonna be like this 10 years from now, or I hope not.
And you
It is a
probably
consideration.
recall that Hancock had a full development plan
Yes.
for that whole area, but it just wasn't feasible to build out to that extent. But there, you know, I can share with you some recent studies. I'm actually gonna put it in our upcoming newsletter about how investing in conservation and recreation, you know, returns like $4 on the dollar to your local economy. So recreation and tourism is obviously huge, so we can't discount in
No,
that
not at all. I'm saying
benefit,
in order to
yeah.
give the fair balance, you need that plus the other, including the tax implications of the tree growth, those are also issues that need to probably, as the discussion goes forward, at least be addressed.
Yeah, I agree.
Despite the unanswered questions at this point, it's my thought that we should go ahead with this, move forward with it, and to take it on to the next step.
Just for the record, I'm gonna abstain on this vote because it's part of where I live. I just don't think it's right for me to vote on this issue. So,
Can we have a,
Then I'd make a motion to support the efforts as proposed by Loon Echo Land Trust and the Raymond Conservation Commission to move forward in a, as proposed at this point.
Second.
discussion? Moved and seconded, discussion. All in favor? One abstain.
Abstention.
I was an English major.
I know. That's why I like to
write
correct you.
Excellent, folks.
Okay,
Thank you
good.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you both. Next, community dock proposal presentation. Wolfingo Hartig, Raymond Revitalization Committee.
Good evening. My name is Ingo Hartig. I live on Oakledge Hill in Raymond, Maine. I'm here to represent Nick Hardy, who came to you some time ago with representing Raymond Revitalization Committee, and I'm here to find out what your decisions are.
Well, do we have any comment? I didn't know we were gonna make a decision on this tonight.
Well, it's now May 14th.
Yeah.
You're gonna put a dock in, you're gonna wanna do it pretty soon.
Well, weren't we talking about some milfoil studies on this?
I thought there was work done with, was it Waterways Protective Association as far
Yes,
as?
Betty Williams is
yeah.
here tonight. She probably can speak to the milfoil issue. There was a range of issues that were studied as a consequence of the initial discussions. The staff meeting held, if not a couple of staff meetings, where we developed answers and maybe even a few additional questions based on the earlier presentation.
That was one issue. One of the other issues was staffing it, parking.
Right.
And I don't think we ever.
Security.
Maintaining, I don't think we ever answered those questions. We ever got those questions
No,
answered.
it hasn't been brought up since.
No?
Yeah, it's in the e-packet.
Yeah.
There's-
All the responses from
No.
committees.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm confident that if you were to go forward, we could make a workable plan, but at some point, we need to have a direction. The 800-pound gorilla is the issue of the milfoil. If you're talking about total milfoil mitigation before you have a dock, that will not happen. If you were talking about a conditioned use, which I think you were the other day in the office, Ingo, where you talked about the idea of trying this on a trial basis.
Yes.
And putting together, some rules that would address some of the management issues. I'm not sure we could hit everything. I'm not sure we can anticipate fully everything. That probably could happen, but absent any direction from the board on it, we really haven't moved in any direction with it. I think that's probably been frustrating to the Raymond Revitalization Committee for sure. So I think what you're asking is for a direction to be set.
Yes, and perhaps please give us permission for a limited time to test us out.
I was gonna suggest the possibility, or what do we think about a possibility of putting it in and seeing how it goes for a year and seeing whether it's maintainable.
We already have the dock.
If the dock's already,
Dock's
yeah,
there.
it's,
See, the milfoil issue, there are still boats that go down through there, right?
it's only one dock of many, so
Right,
I don't think.
exactly.
I don't think
I
it's.
think this order of magnitude, Chris Hansen's here, but I think the number he gave me in that immediate vicinity is 250 docks?
A little less than that, Doc.
What's the number?
I think it was closer to 200.
200 docks?
Well, but one of 200 is not going
That's
to make
counting the
a big
marinas.
difference.
Indian Point.
All the different finger floats and all the different tie-ups, okay, so 200 docks?
Or within 100, 200 yards, and then you have a number of docks upstream. It's not
Right.
like you're basically surrounded by other boat docks.
Can we get signs down there?
All those things, all the basic things like signage, we can definitely do, you know, making sure the dock is
Limited
safe
parking.
and sufficient, and you know, developing parking rules. Things we can't do are a paid attendant, you know, we can't probably provide lighting, and I don't think we'd encourage night use anyhow. There's all kinds of things on the list that could be done.
Do we really think that parking is gonna be a problem if people are coming in with in a boat? I mean.
Well, I mean, you know, you wonder if there's pickup spots, you know, someone
Yeah.
parks at Memorial Park, gets on a boat and takes off.
I can tell you that parking will be a problem. Nate's gonna tell you we have a car parked at the Raymond Beach right now that's been there for a few days because the parking signs are down, and they're going to go back up. Is that what you're gonna tell us, Nate? So parking is definitely something we've got to do and will do.
Do we have a sign at Raymond Beach that says no overnight parking?
We do, it's just down right now.
Okay.
And someone got in what happens is we put signage up for any number of things in town, and for whatever reason, people sometimes take those signs down. Can you believe that?
I'm shocked.
And so, parking signs come up and go down, and so we gotta get them up again.
You know, does it say something like owner will be towed, you know, or towed at owner's expense, or?
Well, we could certainly do that.
But anyway, all those things, we could come back quickly with a plan, but we need to have a direction, I guess. We've tried to provide the information that we could based on what we thought were the questions, and we may have gone a bit overboard on the questions even, too.
So we're looking
We have a
for,
couple of people that wanna be heard on this subject too. I'm sorry.
I said, we are of course looking for some leadership from you, and which would be helpful, so we know what to do. When you're talking about two people, employees, what is their job? You know, attendees, you say.
Well, you know, you're gonna have some waste management down there.
Oh,
and things
that
like
kind,
you know,
yeah.
So,
We already have bathrooms there.
yeah.
Right. The town's position on
I mean,
waste is
throw
typically carry in, carry out.
Right.
That's the new model. And, you know, we haven't had a lot of problems with that, except on Raymond Beach itself. That's been a bit of a problem. We've now got that under control. But as far as the, you know, littering issue, I don't think that's been an overwhelming problem at all, has it, Nate? No. And it is not a problem at most, you know, publicly assisted or non-assisted, I should say, boat facilities, docks, ramps, that sort of thing. You don't typically run into that problem.
We have a couple of other people that wanna be heard on the subject.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Liz.
You
Julie?
said there was going to be no.
Julie, please.
I'm Julie Sutherland, Ledge Hill Road, Raymond, sorry. No attendant for the boat dock. Who's going to regulate time limits? And there's no sidewalk on that side of 302. There's actually no crosswalk markings. There is crossing signs, but there's no crosswalk, white line markings on there. And just 2 weeks ago, there was another accident at that intersection. If I remember right, reading the part of the report, somebody coming down off 85 had the right-of-way. Someone coming down 302 ran the red light, hit the SUV, flipped it right over on its roof. There's numerous accidents there. It's a veterans park also. And on the nice weather that we had in the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing a lot of families in there pulling in, taking their little kids out, and fishing down in there, and having picnics. If we got more boats coming in, I've been boating in there, actually in a canoe, long time ago. It was pretty hairy a lot of times during the summer. End of summer, it gets really low down in that side. The milfoil is a huge concern. Time limits on the dock, since we're not going to have a attendee. How many boats are we going to have at the dock? Who's going to maintain the dock? Where's the funding for this coming from? Thank you.
Thank you. Peter?
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I guess first of all, my sense would be that the onus of responsibility is on the proposers of this to advance a plan. I think you can't have it both ways. You can't discount considering fireworks ordinances because you can't enforce, but then say you're going to put a regulation on how long you're going to be able to dock there on a public dock without having some sort of enforcement. So I'm a little bit confused as to why there isn't any type of consistency here. I witnessed that accident. It was pretty brutal, and the SUV was right on top, and I believe if anybody saw pictures of it, they'd understand just how bad that intersection is. It's one of many bad intersections in the town of Raymond. I did see Inland Fisheries weighed in the e-packet. They didn't really find a real issue with fish. I found that comforting, since that is the major migration route for the salmon. I think that looking at trash, signage, lighting, the responsibility of the town to put the dock in and out, paid attendance, I don't know the answers to those things. I just think all of those things need to be weighed and that there has to be a plan by the proposer to come in to address those issues, and I believe that those were discussed the last time. I believe that a lot of the information is contained in your e-packet. So I'm a little bit concerned about a trial going forward without, especially at this late date, without a little bit more of a plan in place.
What I was suggesting, in the absence of a formal proposal from anybody, based on the fact that we've gathered this information, if we had a green light, I think we could come up with a plan, but we don't. We don't have any direction as to what to do, so until we do, we haven't done that.
I mean, ideally, we would want to put a dock down there to help out the businesses in that area, but in the end, how can you patrol it? How can you keep it in, and on the other hand, it's the Veterans Park.
I don't think it would infringe on veterans.
The way I look at the Veterans Park issue, Lonnie, is that you're gonna get more people in there to walk around, read the bricks, look at the people that served this country.
That piece of it is fantastic.
Right.
It's the piece of them realizing what's there and either defacing it or leaving trash there and making it just.
Well, I mean, it
not
hasn't
as
happened
appealing.
yet. It hasn't happened.
And it hasn't happened at other facilities. We don't see that problem at the boat launch at Raymond Beach. I've not seen that at any of the public launches in any of the towns I've managed or know of anyone who has that issue. I think, I'm not saying that people don't sometimes overstay what would be a reasonable time limit, but for the most part, people come in, dock the boat, do what it is they want to do, and then head out. So you don't really see that problem.
Walter Manchester is here, Good Life Market. Do you have any thoughts on this, Doc, Walter?
Well, I'm supportive of the idea. I think right now, you don't have.
Sorry about that.
I'm supportive of the, I'm supportive of the idea of a dock there. Right now, you don't have access for people that are on Sebago to come to the town to access town services, to access the park. This just provides, a short-term tie-up location for boats that are currently on Sebago so that they can access town of Raymond services.
In your experience, I think I know the answer, but I'm just asking because you're right there. Do you think people are doing that anyhow without a dock?
A few shallow draft boats, like pontoon boats, do. They come in and they just sort of beach there at the park. Typically it's pontoon boats or sometimes some smaller rowboats, but it's more often pontoon boats that are coming over from Fry Island that can do that.
Do you have any idea how long they stay when they come up from the beach there?
Those that I know of are short term. They're stopping to run into town to pick up things, from my store, to pick up things from going to the lobster, one of the lobster places in town. Typically, it's short term. Or they're stopping and staying and using the park, for, just to get out, stretch the legs, use the park facilities briefly.
Thanks.
Chris?
I think what I see is though, some issues that we've already discussed tonight. I think the fireworks ordinance was one, the boat launch, the concept of a boat launch ordinance of getting all your ducks in line prior to, whether it's a trial or a permanent location. We've brought up before questions about security. How do you secure that location if there are events that occur in that area because the dock is there? Disagreements with time and efforts. I've even seen proposals about putting wildlife cameras out there. Well, that's great, and as long as there's someone there looking at the wildlife cameras doing some real time. Otherwise, it really begs the question that, again, the leadership I was hoping for this, that the proposal was coming to us from the Raymond Revitalization Committee and not the other way around. I have posed, rather than thinking backwards, retrospectively and saying put it in place and then we'll fix the problems, I just don't see that as the answer to the milfoil question. I think I've brought this up before, Betty, about all those other sites where milfoil is on Sebago Lake where the other towns aren't doing any work. They're not doing anything. Raymond's doing the work. And we're shouldering the responsibility, and to add just another responsibility, and when this proposal first came to us, it was stated that this was to give access to the folks from Fry Island, so that they could, and if you look at the map, so that they can scoot across and access some of the businesses in Raymond. And to be honest with you, I want to be a good neighbor with Fry Island, but I don't want to take on the responsibilities and of having to provide this. I don't think it's a good location. If you look at the traffic, you look at the crosswalks, it may be a good location for the businesses, but I don't think it's a good location for both public safety and for lake safety and lake health.
Well, like I said, I was asked to present this packet, and I'm basically here to learn, also to get leadership from you. We did a lot of homework on this. We worked on it for almost a year. Almost, well, 10 months. And so it's not like a brand new proposal. And it went back and forth a couple times. So it's now May. So I have respect to your opinion, of course, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
Teresa?
Teresa Sadak, Webb's Mills Road. I just have a question, I guess. Why can't we try it for a year? And if there is issues, just shut it right down. Do you guys have the authority to do that? So, I mean, this way you're kind of working on both sides, and then that way you can see if it works or not. So if there's big issues that you see, that there's destruction or whatever, shut it down. You know, take the dock right out.
Sam, if I remember, I'm trying to find it in my notes here, but I think the cost of getting the dock in and out was around $2,000, a little more than that.
It's minimal.
Is there, would the revitalization committee contribute to the cost of getting the dock in and out?
I'm sorry, I just had to clarify. Ingo Hartig again.
Yeah, would the revitalization committee contribute the $2,150 for the signs, the erosion control, getting the dock in and out? It's about $2,500 a year. I mean, would there be contribution from the businesses to try that?
Well, yes, because there are 3 merchants in general who volunteered to pay for the dock. Okay. And I'm pretty sure putting it in was part of it. Of course, if there are rules and regulations regarding erosion, we'll have to address that as well.
Yeah, so we have a cost of $2,500 for the first initial installation. I mean, if the committee is willing to raise those funds, why can't we try this from the weekend before 4th of July to the weekend after Labor Day to just try it out?
I agree, that's what I said before.
What's gonna be our criteria to say it isn't working? You know, what's gonna be, you know, we don't even have guidelines to say, okay, this is what's not gonna make it not work, and this is what's going to seek our approval.
Well, I think you look to see if there are issues. If it doesn't work for the merchants, that's, you know,
That's
they
big,
made that
'cause-
investment. They made that investment. The
Right.
town's not making an investment other than giving them the okay to try it.
Charlie?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Betty, I mean, there was a fairly significant milfoil component that Raymond Waterways Protective has suggested that really should go along with this proposal. Is that correct? I mean, with the dash and
That would be ideal.
with divers and clearing a path and making sure boats aren't idling there. I think, John, you brought that up as one of your, a concern that you had, that who's there to monitor that the boats that are waiting to come into the dock aren't sitting there idling, churning up that area. I mean, I know there's a significant amount of single dock traffic, but I think the Jensens brought up the fact, at one time made comments that this dock will attract multiple boats coming to one dock area, not just an occasional vacationer who's at a, I mean, is that correct? Am I and so.
It'll create more traffic.
And so I guess that's my concern.
how much, but-
It has been the
That's what I
concern,
wanted to
excuse me,
phrase
it's
that
been
point.
the concern of the community, I think, on this, Ingo, from a year ago. Right from the very outset, the issue of security and all of these meetings that have been convened in this year's time has indicated this community has said that's a major concern for this proposal. And what are some of the answers? And we've had the answers presented, even if they're ideal. I think when you're dealing with milfoil, you don't want to take those chances. We're spending money trying to mitigate milfoil, and at the same time, we're saying, well, let's give this a shot for $2,500. It's far more of a serious issue than $2,500. We're talking about property values, we're talking about how much money Raymond is contributed to the milfoil mitigation in Sebago Lake, despite what our neighbors aren't doing. And
So would you then suggest to just close down the other docks as well?
what you don't want to do is make a problem worse.
Right.
And that's why for the past year, that's why these meetings have taken place. And it appears as though tonight we still are right back where we were a year ago, asking the same questions, asking for the leadership on this. If the businesses want this, then come to us with the negotiations that have taken place to say, ideally, what's the best way to go forward. Good Life Market's not gonna close, the Fisherman's Catch isn't gonna close if we don't have this dock in place this year. And this may be just one of those issues, just like the purchasing of the Pismire Mountain project. It might take another year, Ingo, to get these ducks lined up, to get those commitments, to Joe, to get the Raymond Revitalization Committee to meet and come up with a different, or at least a plan that addresses the concerns that this community brought forward a year ago.
Well, absolutely. I totally respect your attitude and approach. Thank you.
Joe?
The issue is we'll be back in a year saying the same thing.
Same thing. We're
Same exact
speculating.
thing. Right, we're speculating how much boat traffic there will be. We're speculating on how much milfoil may be cut up and transported.
How
We
many
have no
people will
idea.
park?
Right, we don't know until we
don't know.
try it.
How big was the dock?
What's the size of the dock, Ingo?
It's right in
He's looking for it.
Forgive me, I don't. I think it's a
Two
total of
sections
4
of
boats
15?
at one time.
That's why I thought it was 30 feet.
Two sections of 15 feet.
So,
Oh, yeah,
2 to
coming
4
close.
boats at a time.
Yeah.
I
think there's a maximum of 4 in the presentation.
Be able to read. Can you read this one? I'm handicapped. 6 feet, 24 feet, and 18.
Yeah.
You said 14.
Yeah, so it's 28 feet long.
Somebody else stand up just a minute, don't want to speak?
I was just gonna make a quick comment.
Okay.
if That's all right.
Your quick comment would be the only quick comment we've had.
Betty Williams, Raymond Waterways. I just wanted to let you know, I know you have in your e-packets the estimate from New England Milfoil to go into the lower Jordan from 302 on out to the Sebago Lake to clean that out. Spend 20 or 25 days, I can't remember exactly how many days it was, but it's $25,000. It's costly to go in there and try to remove milfoil. To run our DASH program with just one boat, including staff, insurance, all the overhead costs that apply to that, runs about $28,000 every year. That's an annual cost if we run the milfoil boat. So I just want people to understand that it's not just get in there and pull up a bunch of weeds and things like that, but it's expensive.
But is one dock going to make that much difference?
I can't answer that.
No, we can't.
There's
We're
no way to,
speculating
there's
on
no
it, but-
scientific answer, I guess. So, but I just want folks to be aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you.
There's a picture of the potential dock site, and you're looking across, and there's 5 visible boats in their slips. I mean, that's the thing. You're still gonna have traffic in and out of that channel. So, Peter?
Yeah, Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. Just to follow up, I think milfoil is an issue. I'm always a little confused about milfoil abatement. If we're doing it and the rest of the people in the lake aren't doing it, and milfoil is transported by boats, then I guess I'm a little lost as to exactly how effective milfoil abatement is unless everybody's doing it, first of all. I don't think that this, I understand. I think one of the things that I do understand is that the transport of milfoil takes place mostly by boats. It's cut up and it's transported by boats. If the objective of the revitalization committee is to increase traffic, then it would just seem intuitively that there will be an increase in the transport of milfoil. To quantify that, I understand. You would need probably NASA science to do that and still wouldn't get it right. But I think any reasonable person would say that this activity will increase the amount of milfoil that is transported around the lake. I don't know that that's necessarily something we want to be doing, number one. The issue of monitoring the site still hasn't been addressed. As I said before, I witnessed that accident. It was horrendous. It's a bad intersection. I would defy anybody to tell me otherwise. There is no crosswalk marked there. There is a traffic light, a pedestrian light. Any of you who have been down there in the summer know what that intersection's like. And you're going to be asking people to deboat and cross that intersection without a plan. If we want to try something and see if it works, I know it's like you throw it against the wall and see if it'll stick. I would remind this board of the Gray Ghost or the Town Beach and the floating restaurant. We threw that against the wall. It didn't stick. I think there has to be a reasonable plan, and I'm not opposed to business in the town of Raymond. I support it. There has to be a reasonable plan, and there has to be a leader, and that leader should be someone who is promoting this plan. It's not the job of the selectmen to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I agree with Peter that it is not our job to present the plan. I think it is.
My name is Robert French. I own property on AI Road off of Route 85. I grew up in Maine, and I know the first thing you do from you're away and you're speaking in front of a town committee, you tell people you are from away. So I am. I wasn't going to say anything here, but if any of you have had any look or any recognition of the millfill problem in southern New England, it is something you don't want. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has given up, and now they're using the herbicides consistently throughout the state with abandon. The idea of stickers for boats and things like this, a very green committee in the state legislature, the person who proposed that was laughed out of the room. You can't be serious. So they don't have a sticker program. They will not have a sticker program. And now it's just strictly herbicides. That is their one and only control of milfoil. So far in the state of Maine, there's some people in here know who I am. I'm very much involved with the eradication of milfoil in Raymond as well as other parts of the state. It is not out of control yet, but I'd be very reluctant to get involved in anything that's going to promote the spread of it. I just can't see making a bad situation worse. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not convinced of the argument that having a few more boats going down that river is gonna create a milfoil issue all over the lake. I'm just not convinced of it, because we already have a lot of boat traffic through there. It's already there. It's not like, you know, if you wanna stop it, you shut off the river to any boat traffic. Is that what we wanna do? I don't think so. There's a lot of houses down in there. It's kind of like this accident on 85. Every time there's an accident, do we shut the road down? Do we say, no, we're not going to have this intersection anymore? It happens. There are accidents that happen. I'm just of the opinion we should try something. It doesn't hurt to try this. There's no danger in trying this. As far as the Ghost Cafe, it was a disaster. But after 1 year, we found out it was a disaster. It never came back for the second year. You know,
If we were to say not having this at the Veterans Park, what stops that marina from putting a dock out there and doing just that and having people pay to dock it there? And then that would allow them to walk behind, behind Key Bank or through Key Bank and have an intersection to be able to make it to, the businesses from that direction instead of at that intersection at the Veterans Park. I know, and it just doesn't make sense to say, okay, we have a problem. We know we're gonna add to it, but let's add to it anyway.
How do you know you're gonna add to it?
Because you know people are gonna use it.
Are you
So
sure? How many?
One.
I mean, people go down there.
It's gonna make it worse.
I don't say that one's gonna make it worse, not when you have 200 slips down there already. You know, what percentage makes it worse? Is it 20%? Is it 50%?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but one makes it worse. 10 makes it worse.
Money, nothing prevents the private sector from doing that. They could do it tomorrow. They get the appropriate permits, and they do it now. Why isn't town?
That's right.
I'm not advocating either way, but there is a bit of a disconnect, an intellectual disconnect on this whole dock issue. Chris can outline the process of getting a dock for an individual. Very simple process, and milfoil doesn't enter into it at all. And so, I mean, I'm of the opinion if we're serious about milfoil, we either have to come up with a plan and fund it at the level that Betty Williams suggested to clean that area up and take care of it, Or maybe we have to look at the way we issue these permits for everyone in areas of milfoil.
So if it's a private individual who does it,
No
milfoil's
issue.
not a problem?
Exactly.
Is that what we're saying?
an issue.
Even though you're gonna have the same amount of boat traffic?
Yep.
Not an issue.
So, is the milfoil issue just the red herring saying, oh, we don't want it, so milfoil's a problem?
I seriously doubt a risk-benefit analysis would probably show that a private dock may have one, possibly two boats that go in and out of it a couple of times a day, maybe twice a day. This is, we're talking, what, a 15-minute limit for up to 4 boats coming in and out of there on a regular basis. I think any kind of risk-benefit analysis would speak to the you don't take any more risk. I think there is no intellectual disconnect as far as this intellect.
Sure there is. There's
Excuse me,
200
Don, would you
private
please?
docks in there. Sure there is.
The intellectual disconnect is not there. What we have heard from Raymond Waterways Protective Association, and they have put in writing a plan that was supposed to go hand in glove with this dock proposal to say, ideally, and we're not talking now, it's the same as Julie's concern about it's not a problem until your barn's on fire. It's not a problem until we have those accidents happen. We know right now that milfoil, and we've just heard from another speaker, that just adds to the body of commentary that we've had over the past year. That milfoil isn't something we should be fooling with. It's something that we know already is a risk, and we're trying to come up with reasonable plans on how to manage that risk so that it doesn't overtake our property values in our lake. And so I do agree with Lonnie's position. It was the position I had a year ago, Lonnie. If you recall the very first proposal, I asked Phil Mishu, who was sitting right here from Panther Run Marina, if this is such a good idea, why isn't the private sector doing it? Why are we even involved in it? It's Phil's dock. We're not going to stand in his way. That's what the private sector is supposed to do. If it's such a great idea, and it probably has a lot more merit to be done where there's already a bunch of boats coming in to the marina, there's people there to watch it, there's,
Well,
I just, a reasonable,
Yeah, I
reasonable
just-
Don has
person.
some thoughts on that, too.
Well, like I said, I don't want to enter into the debate about the dock or not, but I just think that it's important, if we're going to take milfoil seriously, and I think we should be taking milfoil seriously, whether it's a public dock or a private dock. I mean, it's a very easy, laissez-faire kind of application, and you're off and running in it for a private dock, and there are 200 of them in there. But when it becomes a public dock, all of a sudden, that's going to be the ruination of the lake, and that's the end of story. So I think you got to treat things, somewhat fairly and equally. And I would disagree. I think 200 private docks are going to far exceed any impact that one public dock would ever have. And I'm not saying do it or don't do it. I'm saying if milfoil's a problem, let's treat it like a problem and not have a back of the envelope kind of application process if you're a waterfront property owner, and then say we're going to hold the public installations to a different level.
What do we need
Yeah, motion.
to vote? Yes, we do need a motion.
Yeah, just to move this along and end this conversation, I'll make a motion to allow public dock financed by the Raymond Revitalization Committee to the tune of $2,500 to try this out from the weekend before 4th of July to the weekend after Labor Day. That's my motion.
Do we hear a second?
What is that, 2 months?
Well, that's the summer months.
Two
That's
months
when
is
you'd
2
have-
weeks or whatever.
That's when you'd have your dock in anyway. Do you have a second? There's no second? The motion
Motion fails.
fails.
So, unless anybody else wants to make a motion?
My suggestion is that we come back with a solid plan if you're still interested in pushing this forward.
Thank you for your decision.
Yep. Thank you, Ingo. Okay. Louise Lester, consider consideration of RSU 14 and municipal referendum warrants for June 11th, 2013 election.
I put before you a copy of the warrant for the RSU referendum on the school budget. And also there will be a second question as to whether you want to, or the public wants to go forward with having a referendum question on their ballots in the future, or less, for the next 3 years. This is supposed to, by this, the law governing the RSU, it has to come forward every 3 years. The second warrant you will have in front of you to be signed is our warrant for the election of officers.
I'll make a motion to put the school warrant on the town meeting vote, and also the election of local Raymond officials on the warrant.
Second.
Comment? All in favor?
Carried.
Just as an aside, so people know, June 4th will be our town meeting, 7 o'clock at Jordan Small School Gymnasium. Our election will be on the 11th of June, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
And absentee ballots are available now.
They are available right now.
Thank you, Louise. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we, by consent, move 2 items out of order prior to the executive session.
Okay. And those would be
Consideration of the quitclaim deed.
Funding requests for improved assessment code.
Oh, actually in three items and public comment.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think it's the best thing to do at this time of night. All right. The next item is the consideration of quitclaim deed as submitted by Deputy Tax Collector.
I'll make a motion to approve a quitclaim deed for property owned by George T. and Susan E. Allen at 8 Kalina Drive, map 15, lot 89A.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. All right, consideration of funding request for improved assessing / code enforcement software. Danielle?
Is it possible for you to take public comment first so I can get set up? I was expecting to have executive session to
Okay.
get my stuff together.
We'll move into public comment now, and then we'll take this as soon as we're done with public comment.
Hi, Grace Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. This will be quick. I just wanted to ask for a follow-up on the traffic study that was done at the intersection of Ledge Hill Road and North Raymond Road. I think it's now got larger stop signs, unless I don't know for sure if that's the outcome, but it looked like they were bigger. I just want to know what the results of the study were, if you have them. Is that all the change that's going to be made? If you recall, that was the intersection where there was a very bad accident. And what else might be done? Thanks.
Yes. That was a terrible accident.
Hi, Nathan White, Public Works Director. We enlarged the signs after that accident, and they went to a MDOT required high reflective sign. The study has not been, we haven't gone any further with the study yet. I have to hire an engineering firm to come out and realign the intersection or come up with a plan of what to do.
We did withdraw our speed zoning review because if we had put that forward, they probably would have increased the speed limit.
Yeah, they actually almost guaranteed the speed limit would go up if we did the speed zone review.
So we withdrew that request.
Boy, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, two things. Can you explain that?
Well,
And-
they use warrants, they call them warrants, to measure the issues related to accidents and other incidents at intersections, and the level of, believe it or not, it's hard to believe for me, living in that neighborhood as well, that the level of serious accidents there do not reach their criteria, and because of the sight lines, which I also think are poor, very poor, particularly, coming into Raymond. But if they told us, the traffic engineer said that more than likely from his dashboard survey, if we push that forward and they did the formal survey, they would recommend an increased speed limit, and we don't want that.
Okay.
It doesn't seem, it doesn't seem
logical,
reasonable, it's illogical, but that's really all I have to say about it. Can you add to that, Nate? You had the direct you had the direct contact with the fellow, but when I first heard that, I couldn't believe it.
So is there further traffic study or not?
The
then?
traffic study is a separate thing. That's
Yep.
something we need to hire done, and Nathan intends to do that. We can do our own, what can we do to this intersection to improve it, what locally, go ahead, Nate.
We are regulated by MDOT, what we can and cannot do at that intersection. They recommended that we hire an engineer. They don't offer any services for us through them to redesign that intersection. At the same time, they won't allow us to do anything without an engineer present. What little I've had to talk with people or engineering, we talked to Sebago Tech about it. They didn't say there's a lot we could do with there because of the geographic location of the intersection, how it is, and the way the roads come into it.
Virtually anything we would propose to do there, or would be proposed to do there, but we still need to do the study, and I think we should do it,
Yeah.
would be expensive, and I think that becomes then an opportunity, an obligation, I would say, for us to lobby the state to do it.
They won't touch it because it's two town ways, there's no state intersecting road with that. And there hasn't been enough high-level accidents in that intersection to warrant any interference with the state.
Then that leaves it to us, I guess, funding it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you just give me an idea of the time frame for when the traffic study will then happen?
I plan to do it after July 1st when we get home. I have to pull that out of my road maintenance account. I don't have it right now. They're looking at about $30,000 just to do preliminary studies on it.
And about how long does that take? I'm just looking for
6
follow-up.
months.
It
So-
takes 6 months to do the
So
study.
to summarize, we can't do anything to the intersection because it's all local roads. It's all local roads, so it's all our responsibility, and it's our responsibility for safety. We can't do anything to the intersection without DOT consent, and they won't help fund it at all. Is that it, pretty much?
That is pretty much it.
But we will do the study and see if there is something we should
See-
do and perhaps pursue that.
Right, that's right.
I planned after July to get a quote and bring it forward to the selectmen. Where it's getting into $30,000, I have to get their approval on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road, so in the wisdom of the state, I guess what we just have to hope for is that there's a good-sized snowdrift to catch the next baby, right? Yeah. Okay. One request I would like to have would be in follow-up to, and I'm not really sure, it wasn't the last meeting or the meeting before, so I guess I'll be safe to say the March meeting because I'm a little confused on when you guys met last. But based on that, I brought a proposal for an ordinance for the use of town assets. And I believe that the vote was to direct the department heads to develop guidelines for the use of town assets. So I would respectfully ask if the board would set some sort of timeline so that we would have some expectation as to when those guidelines would be developed and presented to the board.
It was on the agenda for the last department head meeting, which was canceled, and I forget the reason now. There was some conflicts in a number of schedules, so it's on the next agenda for the next department head meeting. Danielle, can you tell us when that is?
Next Thursday?
Next Thursday. So I would expect it's not going to be that difficult, so I would think that we should be able to do that at the next meeting.
Terrific. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay. Now we'll move into, we've had public comment. Closing public comment. Motion to go into executive session to consider.
Well, no, wait, we're doing Dan. We're gonna do Danielle.
Now we're doing Danielle. Okay.
All right, industry. We currently have a product called Prosus that is a division of NDS, and it's no longer meeting our needs. And it's going to require several costly updates in order to keep it up and running in the upcoming year, because we're at kind of like a critical mass point that the program is going to kind of either collapse in on itself, or we're going to have to find another option to maintain our data. And with this new software update, I've been able to negotiate a price point with Vision that comes with several financial incentives, as well as allows us to have some input with the way that the software functions, because of the fact that it's new to the state of Maine versus, even though it's being used in states like Massachusetts, it's new to the state of Maine, so we'll be able to fine-tune it to our needs and our codes. So to kind of go over my presentation tonight, I'm going to overview the software, its functions, the way it will work across departments, the efficiencies that it will create within the departments, as well as the way staff will be able to operate, and then I'll compare it to the existing software, as well as give a financial summary, and then kind of wrap it all up by going over everything. So to start, this is an extension of current Vision software that we run that, as I said, is part of the assessing department, and it will communicate in real time, communicate the code enforcement data with the assessing data in real time. And what happens right now is the Prosus software, everything that is in there was dumped out of NDS, I don't know, when the program was first back. I think it was bought in like 2005. And the problem is because there is no maintenance of that data, that the only way like ownership changes or things like that, or new parcels are created, is if someone comes in and applies for a permit for that parcel. So you could actually skip several owners before, you know, anything happens with that parcel. And the problem with that is that, you know, parcels are constantly evolving through ownership. And in this way, it will help to link all the data between the two, so we'll be able to look up deeds and GIS information. It will also have a web interface that will allow the residents and other staff members to access this data without having to actually have the program downloaded onto their computer. So this allows for an element of communication with the public, as well as just makes a lot of our information more accessible. It can also be linked with our current data that we have through Google Earth, through our GIS program, and also the new GIS webs interface that is being created right now. And one of the major features is that they're unlimited logons, so we can give other people access to the software, but give them defined user interface. So a general person coming on wouldn't need a logon. They could just see the information and look at things like permits, but someone else, like a contractor, could have a logon and apply for a permit in real time, be able to check the status of that permit. And you could also give real estate brokers permit information, so they could communicate with Chris and allow for that kind of two-way access point. The web interface also works on a variety of operating systems, from, you know, tablets to computers to cell phones. So therefore, when Chris is out in the field and he completes an inspection or finds a violation, he can write the notes right there in the inspection and send me note and directive for the next step to do, like either to contract the real estate broker and say your certificate of occupancy is ready, or start drafting our letter for violation, or even remind him to do a follow-up. The way that this cross-department integration will work is that Chris will be able to see the lots that are being created or the change in ownership as it is happening in the assessing office. As I said, building permits and associated details with the property, including building plans and layouts, will now be accessible to the assessing department, because people can now apply for permits online, so everything's digital. So they can, Kurt will be able to see floor plans and other details like that when he goes and does his inspections, because right now he's only getting the front sheet of the permit, so he literally almost has no information whatsoever when he heads out into the field. The fire department will also be allowed to input their own permits, because they have a solid fuel burning permit that they send on to me and then I help them with. They'll also be able to input notes with their life safety inspections, as well as, you know, if they needed to input any data to, you know, write violations or letters or so forth, they could do that as well. The software will also allow for the communication across the department. So therefore, you know, as I said, the fire department can write a note and Chris can respond to it. And as I said, once again, the public also has access to these things, so that way they can see kind of what's, like they're wondering about a property, whether or not something's being followed up on. So then people constantly wondering if we're actually following up on violations, they'll be able to see some of that information. One of the efficiencies that will be, you know, I can't stress enough, is there will be no more double entries. Because right now what's happening is I get a permit, I enter it in, and then there's certain information that Chris needs, so I input it into his program, and there's certain information that Kurt needs, so I input it into his program, and then I run reports, and I have to go back through 300 permits to make sure that all the information that Kurt needs from those permits is there, because of the way that this database works, and then I have to put it into another format, and this will just put it all into one simple format and process, so that it's what everybody wants, because they'll be able to make user-defined reports and everything like that. It'll also make code and assessing information available 24/7 because of the web access. It's also going to become a one-stop, you know, information highway, where, because it will bring together code data, Vision, and Google Earth. So instead of, because right now people have to go onto Vision to look at it, assessing, they have to go onto Google Earth to look at GIS, and then for codes, we don't have anything online other than the web links that we post for permits. The data will also be specific to our ordinances and state codes. So if Chris says, like, I want to write a violation for X, he'll put that into the system, and the system will help him to spit out a violation letter that will cite codes, the time frames and parameters in which to correct the situation, and create a follow-up template for him to, a schedule for him to go back out to the property and follow up. It can also be a link to the town's accounting database, so that way we can, in the code department, we can actually take money and then just hand in a bag at the end of the day. Because right now what we're doing is we're taking our customers and forwarding up front. So during peak seasons when, you know, we're busy too, we're now putting added pressure on the upfront staff in order to help. Because what happens is I'll go up and actually take the money and almost cut in line and be like, hey, can you issue my my transaction, my receipt, so that I can get my contractor back on the job site. So to compare Vision 6 to Process is, Process doesn't have a web interface, and they have no intentions to do so. Process is also like a basic query system, kind of like Access. So it doesn't, it's very cumbersome to use, and I've actually had to figure out ways to get around some of its quirks, whereas Vision is actually kind of very user-friendly and allows for you to make user-defined reports. The only drawback to it is based off assessing database versus parcel, but as I said, if we sign on early, I may be able to help get that corrected and fixed. Both store planning board and zoning board data, but I'm fine when through the you know, the websites that I've seen active right now for other towns, I find that Vision does it more flawlessly, so I don't even use this function in Process because it's so cumbersome. Vision also has a fully staffed customer support staff that can help us to work within issues, and their commitment is within 4 hours. Process is reliant on a single individual who is semi-retired, so he gets the issues when he is able to, not, you know, so I've had instances where I've called him and it may take a couple days to get a response. So not sure. If I back up just for a second. So, and then the other thing with Process is that we're limited to the number of seats. So there are only 3 computers that are allowed to be logged on to Process. So, and those are ones that the software is actually downloaded on. As I said, Vision will allow for unlimited number of users. So I can, like, one of the ladies up front could cover for me if I'm ever out, and so they can access and see Chris's schedule, or find out where Kurt is for the day, or, you know, and help to, you know, keep us a well-oiled, functioning machine, so we're not, like, you know, completely reliant on one person. My favorite part, the financial information. So the initial cost of this software package was going to be $15,000 to get it up and running, but because we are an existing customer, I was able to get that reduced to $12,500. The yearly licensing fee was going to be $3,000, but for the 13-14 fiscal year, because we'd already started the budget, they were going to be willing to waive it. So, looking at the funds we have available right now for fiscal year 12 into 13, we have $610 left in the software budget. Next year for codes, we have $1,200. So if we add those together and deduct that from the $12,500, I will need $10,690 left to be raised. And based on just some preliminary numbers, it looks like that may be left over in the year-end carryover. Or the only other option would be if the selectmen wanted to, they could take it out of their contingency in order to help get this off the ground. So, to conclude, Vision software will allow for increased productivity and streamline the permitting process. It will increase communication and input across departments. Information will become more readily accessible to the public and will be easier to use. There will be increased efficiency within code and assessing departments due to better data entry techniques. And signing on early means that we will have more input in the features that are included in the program. And I've already kind of been working on this because one of the things I saw that lacked was an actual calendar. So I've been working with them to try to get it to work with our email clients so that way we'll be able to move forward. So I want to follow up by saying thank you for your time, and I know I'm talking like a mile a minute. I'm crazy nervous, but if you have any questions, I'll go get the lights, and then I'll be happy to talk to you.
Questions?
Most definitely. Want to start off with the whole town really owes you a thank you for coming up with this idea and being, and exploring to find this, because, being on the tech committee, not as involved as I'd like to be, but being on that committee, I know that we're going to and are in the process of running into many obstacles with our equipment, our software, and, what holds our software. I think that Kevin Woodbury's, Lori Forbes do a great job by keeping that committee together, and I know you get very involved with it as well, Dominic as well. And it's a great thing, so thank you. Really, the only question I have is knowing that once we pay that initial money, $12,500, they're saying, okay, we'll waive the $3,000.
Correct.
For the first year, which is great, but what is it going to be? And I'm assuming that it's going to be $3,000, but what are we looking at 3 years down the road? What do they plan? What does Vision plan on, updates? Are they going to charge us for all the updates as they find more updates? Are they going to charge us, is it going to be $4,500 come,
Right.
15, 16 year? And there's going to be, and I know there's somewhat, inflation that's going to happen, but in the other aspect, they kind of have you by,
Yeah, we got it.
well, thank you. I didn't really know how to word that. I appreciate it, Mr. Levitt. So, I'd like to see something that was put on paper to say this is what it's going to be for the next 5 years, say, or 3 years, or something more than, each year being at their beck and call.
No, and I understand that, and I think so far I'd have to look into it, but I think we've remained consistent with our contract with them. And in terms of our updates, we get to pick and choose what updates we choose to use, because right now we are on 6.4, and there's a 6.5 and a 6.6 update, and we have opted not to take them. And if we did choose to take them, it would be free to us, because it's just kind of part of their trying to keep us moving forward in the right direction. The only reason why we haven't is because it would include infrastructure changes. So in the way, in the functionality and changes of the program. But in general, I can check to see what a commitment would be from them in order to get that contract moving forward. But
and then just one last question is the training piece.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some type of tutorial on the training? Is there, or are you just given a book and say, here you go, figure it out?
Nope, they send staff members down to work with us. I believe it's 2 days, and then they also have a built-in guide. And I'll just let you know, there is no manual with our current process software, and I've done pretty well to acclimate myself to that. And I've become actually pretty lucky because after signing on Kurt, he is an amazing asset. He uses, I know you guys have seen some of the work that he's done. He uses vision inside and out, and he believes it with like the core of his being. And he went with me to the seminar where we learned about it, as well as about 4 other packages as well. And we were both just blown away. And he's actually going to recommend this to one of his other towns as well. So that's how much he believes in it. And, you know, if you guys come to the town office and see him in action with the things that he has helped to evolve our assessing office into, he is, you know, stellar. I really appreciate working with him.
The nature, of course, of proprietary software is you enter into a sort of a financial marriage, let's call it, with the vendor. And so typically what we see is that you pay that annual licensing fee for a period of years, you know, and we can find out how many years and report back. But typically it's, you know, like 3 to 5 years, and then, you know, the world moves forward and they hit you, however you want to look at that, with a update, a new module, and then they charge you for that new module. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you buy your software from. It sort of works that way. And if they're not doing that, then that means they're not developing and moving forward. But that's what I've seen.
Charlie?
There must be you mentioned that there was gonna be a cost, just inherently in updating process. So that would have to be somewhat considered as a subtraction from this,
Right.
this 10,690.
It's going to be about $5,000 because right now we are running off of an XP version of Windows, and Kevin told me that in order to get just that portion alone updated will be $3,000, not to mention the contractor's time at like it's about, I think it's like $100 an hour. So we have to then factor in his time, and then one of the things that Chris and I have been holding off on because we were looking for a new software package is some of our permits are actually outdated in the program. So we will have to pay him his hourly rate as well to get that back up and functioning, so.
XP goes away next April too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why Kevin says our hands are tied, so it's either we pay this $5,000 for a product that we're not necessarily happy with, or we move forward. The other reason why I'm coming forward now, because I know that I'm kind of like late in the game in terms of budgeting, was the contract automatically with Process automatically renews July 1st. So I was hoping that if we did decide to move forward with Vision, that we would be able to give them a courtesy letter to let them know that within 30 days that the contract would be terminated.
I think the most exciting part about this is the relational database part, which is something Kevin has been trying to do for a long time. The one-stop shopping, where you enter the data and it pushes it out to all the databases,
Yes.
as opposed to multiple entry.
Can you
So
put
that
a
makes-
number on that, or what it's gonna save
I
us for
can't. Can you, Danielle?
efficiencies?
In terms of
Time, money.
I would say like, you know, probably like 30% of just my job alone is just data entry and maintaining that. And then part of what I've been trying to do is actually make us digital and online. And for me, Kevin and Lori or anyone else that I, you know, get to help me with this project and putting that in, just I couldn't even put a figure on that right now because it just puts so many hours into it and learning it. So.
Yep. Charlie?
Didn't you just have an issue between the 6.4 and the 6.6 that Kurt was using? There was an issue recently that our Vision 6.4, because we hadn't been able to update it, is he working with 6.6 and other?
He's working, I think he's working 6.5 in
6.5.
Gardner, and I can't remember, I don't know if he had an issue. I know that he sometimes has issues like logging on to us, because our data is a little bit different, so he'll come on and try to show me how to do some reporting thing, be like, oh, that's right, you can't do that, so.
I would make a motion, it makes absolutely sense, and I too, thank you, Danielle, I think you did a great job, and that's the type of presentation you want to see, so that you can make decisions at a meeting like this. So you've given us everything I think we need. I would make a motion that we take it out of contingency, since it's a July 1st, with a possibility that it'll be no net increase, because you believe there may be some money left over at the end of the fiscal year to begin with, but it goes right along. Well, I'll make that motion to move ahead and to fund it out of contingency.
we have a second?
I'll second.
Second? Moved and seconded?
And then just as one piece of discussion, this is the type of, you see this throughout all the committees that are working, whether it's the technology committee, particularly most recently the compensation committee, which has talked quite a bit about the cross-training that has occurred in our town office, which I don't think people recognize how well we've done to make sure that all the folks within the office, the front office staff, for instance, are cross-trained. And that's not, that may be unique to municipalities, but it's not unique to industry. And so, again, I compliment you and Louise and all the other staff for taking that initiative to have that cross-training so that we have an efficient and, as you called it, a well-oiled machine.
Moved and seconded. Any other comment? All in favor? Carried.
Thank
Nice-
you.
Nice going. That was a good presentation.
Yep. I move to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the Raymond scholarships.
Second.
All in favor? We're in executive session.
I'll make a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
All in favor? We're now in regular session. The next issue and the final issue is the town manager report and communication.
No, we gotta award these scholarships.
I beg your pardon. I
I'll
thought
make
we
a
did.
motion to award 5 scholarships for $1,000 apiece to the following 5 individuals. And Charlie, do you have them? Go ahead and read them.
Yep.
Hunter Perkins, Cassidy Gaudette, Hannah Bolduck Jackson, Olivia Latham, and Ryan Schweitzer. And these will come to these students based on the generosity of the funds from Anna Collins and Ruth Day, Carlton Edwards, George Woods, Elva Clow, and Tornstein Johannes Lund.
That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
And if we could just remind everyone that if you submitted an application that was not complete or came in late, unfortunately, your application does not get considered. So next year, please be on time.
There were some people that were otherwise very qualified, and they didn't get it because of those reasons. Thank you. Now, moving along to town manager report and communication, Don.
Okay, confirmed date for next meeting, June 18th. Does that work for you folks?
Works for me.
Yeah, works for me.
Okay, Louise already covered this, but perhaps it bears repeating for the Night Owls. On June 4th will be the annual town meeting at 7 p.m. at the Jordan Small Middle School gym. On June 11th, we have our town elections, 7 a.m., 8 p.m., also at the middle school gym. 2 selectmen positions, 3-year term, 3 budget finance committee members, 3-year terms, 1 school board position, 3-year term. Absentee voting began on May 10th. Ballots are available until June 8th, noon, and due by the close of the polls on June 11th. Can we keep rolling here?
Yes, keep
Okay,
rolling.
keep rolling. I just want to let you know we were very fortunate. We ended up getting a bid that exceeded just one bid, our reserve that we set on our 1978 fire truck. Asian Auto Services of Plastow, New Hampshire, bid $5,543.21. If we include the 2 red lights, we complied with that request, and it's headed to a collector. This guy was a broker. It's headed to a collector in Newport, Maine. So we're very happy with that. About $543 more than we paid for it. Saturday
Great job.
hours?
Great job. We used it and you still made money off it.
Yeah.
Great
18
job.
years. Used it for 18 years, yeah. So that's a good deal.
Great job.
I guess everybody's pretty glad to see that go, though. It has a lot of quirks.
We
So-
hope this is not being broadcast in New Hampshire.
Yeah, well,
Have you got the check?
we got the bank check. I was really
Wasn't
relieved.
as where it is.
Relieved. I think in subsequent bids like that, though, we talked about it, we probably will because when the guy found out he was the only bidder, he was a little bit, I think we may put a bid deposit on future ones as well. But anyway, that'll be down the road. We're going to begin our Saturday hours on May 25th from 8:30 to noon. I have got a little memo here from Louise on behalf of the staff with some metrics about what, and I'll see that you get this tomorrow. I'm going to discuss with Sam the possibility. Louise has made a memo here on behalf of the staff suggesting that we start the summer with the summer hours, but that perhaps curtail it early, and she'll show you the numbers for that. But that's subject to a discussion with Sam to see if he wants it on the agenda or not, and you may want to join that discussion. That's what I have, I guess.
Okay. Already did it.
We already did it.
I think went down that way.
We did it,
Don
yeah.
has it.
Yeah, I've got
Okay.
it. Do you need it? I think I've got it.
Okay. Fiscal warrants?
I'd like to make a motion to accept payroll expense summary dated 5/14/2013 for the amount of $118,120.09.
Second.
All in favor?
Also like to make a motion to accept treasurer's warrant dated 5/14/2013 for the amount of $119,215.53.
Second.
All in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?